might be
here. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Internet.
Hello.
So we've got a couple people we don't normally get to see.
I might be able to get John to show up because he said he was going to show up this time.
John never shows up.
This is true.
We've got Astra. Astra, I believe, is a new addition to our group, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
I'm Astra. Yes.
All right. Let's see. And then we've got, how do you pronounce it? Shivaditya? Is that right?
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of? Okay. All right. I gave it my best college try. So eventually I'm going to figure out like a proper introduction to this thing. But for now, it's just a clusterfuck. So
we don't need an introduction.
No. Who are we? Rotten Deadite?
What do you think this? What do you think this is? A professional production?
Like, who can do the best impression of Rotten Deadite?
It's a super casual lore cast.
Hi,
Cash.
What do you think this is? The selective lore cast?
It's way too more well spoken than me.
So now that we're relatively acquainted and some of us are being lucubrated, there you go. What do we want to talk about? Actually, here's what we're going to do. Astra, you are our newest, so if you have any questions, we're going to prioritize yours. We're going to fast track those. And we're going to deal with those.
Not to put you on the spot, but we're putting you on the spot.
Look, I came into this with no expectations and no really preparation, so I'm a blank slate, I guess.
Okay. So is there anything you'd like to talk about? Not necessarily questions you have, but perhaps there's a topic that maybe you'd like to get us rolling on. Maybe there's a favorite race that you have, or any kind of Elder Scrolls related topic at all, off the top of your head.
So many. The first thing that comes to my mind is like the concept of how the different races see gender, especially races who have more than two genders, which is growing ever so much in ESO especially, and like in previous games. Yes, it's fantastic.
I would say that the Argonians, especially because that is the absolute prime example of a race that has more than two genders, I would say they have a very lax view of it.
I'd say Argonians are almost post-gender at this point.
Yeah, as a general rule, the Argonians, it would seem, don't really care much about it because they just kind of go with the ebb and flow of the Hist. If the Hist deems something changes, it changes. If the demon stays the same, it stays the same. Going into Altmer, my favorite territory, they seem to not actually care as much. They care more about, like, they honestly care more about how you act in social situations than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was just like...
I think...
fan personing out majorly during the whole alchemy side quest line.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. I've been lazy this week and haven't gone to Somerset yet.
Oh, you'll love it.
I won't spoil it, even though it's probably been spoiled.
It's just something too that like I generally the narration and stuff like that isn't like it's a gentle topic, but they treat it very well, which is what I appreciate.
Yeah, ESO handles a lot of more niche topics. I guess could be a word for it.
They do
a lot of more social topics fairly well.
Yeah, they seem to approach a lot of I suppose social controversies.
Oh, hey, good news! I have wonderful news. I am wizarding John into here right now because he's downloading Chrome.
Whoosh. With the scope of ESO, though, it would be really disappointing and kind of glaring if they didn't.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, maybe not so much glaring. I mean, if they just avoided the issue altogether, like I wouldn't hold that against them, because they're not trying to create controversy or contentious issues. That's not something, you know, they're a content creator, and so that's where they want to stay. They just want to make their content. But if they took a stance that was exclusionary. Or
That would be a different story.
What's that? Someone said something. Oh, Magenta.
Yeah, it would be a completely different story if they stayed. Instead of being safe and not contentious, if they went the other way and went, oh, actually, trans people don't exist in this universe. Fuck you. And it's just like,
yeah, exactly. And I mean,
they lose
business.
They'd lose. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd lose a lot of their player base, to be honest, including myself.
Absolutely. Because I mean, I think as far as like from a business sense, yeah. Okay, I'll try. From a business sense, I mean, what is going to be more safe in terms of your ability to make money? Being inclusionary and allowing more people to be included in your media, or to be exclusionary? Oh yeah, this group and this group and this group, we're gonna call you out. We're gonna say mean things about it. Like that, in and of itself, as a business decision, that would be a bad idea. And so it is fiscally responsible to be on that side of these issues. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I don't know if that demeans the value.
It's very topical.
What's that?
It's very topical. So it's like including this, and actually, I really like the way that ESO does include like representation, because it does seem like it comes from a place where they are actually taking the time to research these topics and speak with people who have these experiences. And I think honestly it comes from the fact that, like, since I joined Twitter, a lot of the ZeniMax devs like started following me, and I see like how they interact, and they even read and like openly admit to read a lot of the fan content and get inspiration from that, which is what I really enjoy. I'd like to see more devs do that.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm not at all surprised to hear that ZOS and BGS devs actually read fan content, because that's been such a huge part of the Elder Scrolls as a franchise. Fan content is always being appropriated, and I mean, it's their IP. They can do what they want with it, and so I mean, while a specific order of words to create fan fiction is the property of its writer, the content therein, because it's based on another piece. I mean, I would say that Bethesda has every right to not steal, but borrow ideas from its fans. Like, I think there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think that's
give certain fans that they got really good inspiration from, just like in the credits of the game, just put like special thanks to, and just have a giant list of everyone they got.
If they included some of my writing, do you know how over the moon I would be?
Yeah. That being said, they have gotten in trouble for it in the past. They got in trouble for it in Fallout 4. Because they appropriated a mod from Fallout New Vegas and used it as the basis to create their housing.
Oh God, yeah. I remember
that. Okay, so they basically copy pasted.
Yeah, they pretty much copy pasted the mod.
Yeah, see, and I mean,
they did actually get in trouble for that.
Yeah, there's a real subtle line to walk there, because I mean, yeah, it's their franchise and everything, but like I said, the content itself, the actual fan fiction or mods or whatever, those are the property of their writers, even if they can't legally make money off it, if that makes sense. And so to use that shamelessly, I think there's a bit of a moral issue there. But then if we're talking about if they were to get the permission of the mod creator, hey, insert modern, hey, Train Whiz, we really like your Wheels of Lol. We'd like to include it, a lot of the content in an update or in the next game or something like that. Like I think that's a world of difference, because there's discourse there, right?
And it's not hard. It's really not hard.
It's really not. It's really not. Especially not for people who get paid to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when it comes to like the Telmora, I ask people for permission for their art all the time. That is the most time-consuming part of putting the Telmore Independent Press together, is getting images. And
I will give you general permission if I start doing the low poly stuff.
and that's really all I need. I mean, most of the time, I will just make it known that I'm going to be using it, because in a lot of cases, I'll see an image that was made in like 2012, and it's old. It's been around for a while, and maybe this account isn't active anymore. And
hey,
so,
Majaz, are you feeling all right?
Are you popping in and out? Silence.
All right.
What?
He's having issues.
He's having issues.
But anyway.
So what did Dan say about type something about me? What?
Sorry, over in the text chat there.
He's telling you to send a poem to the Telmore Independent Press.
Yeah.
Do the thing.
Yeah.
My microphone. Even
I could. I honestly could. I've been doing a lot more poetry, and
if I had
please submit it.
If I had enough poetry, like I could even make an extra subset in the Apocrypha section, because right now I have articles and I have stories. And articles are for like out of universe pieces, so lore essays and comparison analysis kind of stuff. I have a player's handbook I wrote for D&D 3.5 for making it a total conversion into Elder Scrolls. Like that's in there.
I want to play that. Oh crap! Holy crap!
It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not terribly balanced, but that's not what I'm good at.
Fuck that.
I mean, I felt like it used to be worse. It used to be worse. But
you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then stories are all in-universe things. So hey, here's a book written from in-universe, or here's a letter someone sent, or here's a poem that was created from someone's perspective.
But yes, Majaz, we can hear you. Is there a question you would like to ask us?
No question. It's just my headphones.
Hey, look, I told you I'd get John in here.
Not being responsive.
Hey, John. Well, it's not Jonathan, right?
Nope. No, Nathan.
No? Okay.
Hey, John, you should adjust your microphone.
Hey, Charlie.
You're a little soft there, buddy.
Shut up. Try to get it figured out.
Just listen louder.
Hey, John, adjust your microphone in the face of Majaj, king of Assyria.
God, that's a new one. Wow. I'm keeping that. I'm writing that right now.
Oh, yeah. My girlfriend had to go to sleep because of UK time zones, but she sent me this to represent her in chat.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Sounds about right.
It's a North American elk, too. I like that.
The tiny reindeer.
Because it has references to my favorite ride.
I don't know what my exploit is doing, so just ignore that for now.
Well, since John has now arrived, and he is also a technically new person to the James League. John, is there any lore question you would like to ask us?
Yes.
I feel worried that I asked you this and you responded yes.
What is that question?
It's more of, what can't you tell me about lore?
Yeah.
Like,
all right, let me tell you.
Tell me all you know. Tell me all
According
you know.
to both. All right, John, continue.
Hold on. I'm actually just trying to stall for time until I can figure out how to actually fix my mic on this. This is an old laptop.
All right, well, John, what I need to tell you is that according to both Nazim and Sabil Stentor, there aren't enough farms. We need more farms.
Honestly, yes. It's a thing that bothers me in game more than it should. Like,
no,
can't support
a
country.
All right, that gets to a very much weirder part because Nazim straight up says, "While most other farmers are struggling to even scrape by, I thrive."
How? Like, did you sacrifice someone?
No. But that implies that most farmers in game make enough food to barely sell at the market to scrape by. Meanwhile, all the other food just goes to themselves. Which means there isn't enough food for Skyrim.
Well, you see, the thing about that, Charlie, is that they need meat. They eat meat to make up for it. And where's the good meat supply? Well, let's just say they like the bloodiest beef in the Reach.
Hey! The bloodiest beef between these cheeks.
Oh my god.
On that note, we should talk about Roar instead.
boy.
Oh boy.
This is gonna get fun.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Alright.
Boy.
Majaz, go.
Well, I said we should talk about Rorikstead on the note of farms.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
fucking
go.
should.
I want to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm full of horse thieves.
Nah, just that one.
Yeah.
He's gone now.
No, I'm here. I'm assuming you all know about the possible quest that they were going to add, but then they didn't.
I mean,
I know, demon
but I
worship
want you to
quest.
explain
Yeah,
it in
the
case
culty
I'm
aspect of it.
Yeah,
Kind of
that's
like
Slightly Wicker Man.
Aren't they
Yes.
using their people to fertilize their crops or something?
Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, I was really
Yeah.
angry that they
It's
didn't
the
add
Wicker
that in
Man,
there.
but instead of a secluded island, it's Rorikstead.
Thought so.
I was so mad that they didn't add that. But yeah.
I think there's a mod. It might be in Cutting Room Floor that you might be able to. Get
Yeah, I
to,
think it
like,
might be
dash
Cutting
back
Room
in.
Floor that
I
puts it
love
back
that
in.
mod so much.
Cutting Room Floor is
Cutting room
great.
floor doesn't have that. I don't
Yeah.
think it's still
Oh, damn.
it's empty.
Oh well. I mean, to be fair, Cutting Room Floor does add in the college guards, so that's fine.
Mm.
Which it should
Thing-
have.
The thing with adding more farms is we get the problem with where you'd have more content, but it'd be less quality content. Like,
No.
we already have bare minimum
See,
interactions with the farmers.
what I feel there is that you don't need to add more farms. You need to make the farms bigger.
I agree with that.
Like, go Witcher
Yes.
3 style, where you have like this
Some
giant
something.
plots of what they're
Rolling
growing.
hills of fields.
Like I used to grow things like cilantro and basil and such, and I had a little patch in my backyard bigger than most farms in Skyrim. So
Yeah.
they really needed me to make them bigger.
Honestly, and that's I think a good example of why the games are not a good representation of the actual lore.
Yes,
Yeah.
such as how the games don't accurately represent alt-Mary math magicians fighting on a medium.
Yeah,
I mean, not even that. Just like basic shit, like how many people are in a city. Like you can't take game equivalents. Otherwise,
like,
you have
like Abruma has like 26 people. Or
have a capital city like Windhelm. It's got
Finally
like
explain.
12 people in it, maybe.
I mean,
Guys, we got this epic
keep
civil
in
war
mind-
going on. We got this epic civil war going on. There's like 20 people on each side. It's a huge battle. It's a fucking
Michael,
huge
Meanwhile, like
battle.
no one's paying any attention to it.
Michael, what are you saying?
It's fine. It's fine.
Go ahead, Michael.
So I have a topic.
hang on. I wanted to make a quick comment, and
Okay,
that
go
is
ahead.
that the games are representations. Because in Oblivion, there's 1,000 NPCs, which is impressive, but medieval London had 60,000 people living in it. And if you think that only 100 or so people live in the Imperial City, nah.
Nah.
That's
So they're representation.
Stuma
So when
again.
you
Boy, fucking moon sugar, man. Yeah, that's fucking insane.
it's just
John,
a-
are you living on the streets again?
Yeah.
Oh, Astra's gone. Hang on.
Oop. Uh-oh.
I think we had a traditional Australian internet fuckery.
The sharks are attacking the Wi-Fi again.
The damn
The
kangaroo.
Aussies are attacking 4chan again. I fucking love Aussies.
Koalas are outside chewing on it. It smells like eucalyptus leaves.
Oh, fucking koalas. Jesus.
Can we bring up how messed up it is that the Dunmer and Redguards both say that necromancy is bad, but then when they do necromancy, it's all right?
That's another thing that supports my wild
Society.
theory that Dunmer and Redguard have like early cultural exchange.
Oh my gosh.
What?
It's interesting to note that the Redguards and Redguards and Dunmer, they're
The the Argonians in Argonia. Sorry, continue.
the Redguards and Dunmer, they're actually very similar in even their place among the other races. Because while the Redguards, who are men, they hold a traditionally marish viewpoint of the world. Lorcan equals bad. That's kind of their stance. Whereas the Dunmer, they don't see Lorcan as a bad person necessarily. They whether intentionally or not, they're worshiping divinity of Lorcan through Almsavy. And
They're double apostates.
yeah. So that the Dunmer are kind of flipped, and the Red Guards are kind of flipped, and so they're kind of parallel that way.
So, all right, that actually reminds me. I was thinking about something very interesting regarding the Red Guard. Best we know about Red Guards when they're in Yokuda was that the Okudans and the left-handed elves fought for centuries until eventually Yokuda sank into the ocean and the Red Guards and the Regatta sailed over to Tamriel. And as we've discussed in previous lorecasts, I have brought up the idea that part of the reason that Anu escaped into the dream was because Anu felt very much persecuted, very much left out of the previous dream. This got me thinking in a very bizarre situation. What if Anu the dreamer was actually a left-handed elf? Or perhaps the concept of they were the equivalent of the left-handed elves. That the left-handed elves is basically just Anu making an in-universe statement of what they were. Because let's think about this. In centuries past, being left-handed could get you shunned or killed because it was seen as being inherently evil.
So my response to that is why put the Yokudans in the light that they are historically?
Well, historically, the Okudans are very bad people.
But we don't see that. We don't really see that from Anu's perspective in the
we do.
Of the Red Guards.
Yeah, we do. We see them as a very evil, destructive force that Anu alone cannot stop. When you think about it, what was the first thing the Regatta did when they landed in Hammerfell?
That's a good point. Cleared it.
They started slaughtering people. They genocided the entire Nidic race and seemed completely proud of the fact that they did that.
I mean, it is technically impressive on a numbers scale.
On a numbers scale, yes, it is impressive. But at the same time, the way they just simply gloss over it, like, oh, the Needs fought valiantly. We honor their bravery, but alas, they were destined to fall. That is a very disgusting viewpoint to have.
It's also very common.
Yeah.
Like, you got to remember, this is Tamriel. Like, everyone is bastards is kind of the byline there.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, everyone is bastards, but the Needs are one of the few races that was directly wiped out and didn't disseminate into other races.
Well, they weren't. The Needs weren't wiped out because, I mean, a lot of them were captured as slaves during the Aeliad occupation of the Heartland.
Yes, but you have to remember that
bloodlines.
You have to remember that the Regatta landed in Hammerfell after the Aeliads were gone. Because the Regatta landed in Hammerfell in the first era.
Yeah, and the Regatta never conquered what I've come to call Nibanium.
The Aeliads were around in the first era.
Hold on, let me pull up that timeline that I.
Yeah, please do, because my brain's shit at this.
Let's see.
I'm over here like, aliens?
What I'm saying, all right, so what I am saying is that the Needs who are part of Nibinea and Calovia, those Needs had already disseminated into Colovian and Nibinese culture. They had already become Colovian and Nibinese.
I've got
the Needs who were wiped out in Hammerfell were the last true Needs, the last
wiped out in Hammerfell. That's the very
sorry, that is what I was saying, because that was
it wasn't
the Deathlands. The Deathlands, as they get called occasionally, were the last bastion of Nidic history and culture.
Yeah. Because I'm looking at the timeline here. I've got Yokudans appear in Hammerfell around year 1000 of the Merethic era.
I don't think it was the Merethic era.
That's what UESP gave me, and then I added that to my timeline graphic.
Hold on, Regatta.
Yeah, they've been around for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean they're.
Hold on.
Oh wait, actually, there's a quest line in ESO where you are it's fighting between the aliens and the Red Guards.
No, it was between Altmer and the Red Guards.
No, it's aliens.
No, if I recall correctly, it was. Are we talking about the one where you go back in time on a drug quest?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that was Altmer.
I thought it. I don't know. I have to go back and check that one.
Because, and I will say this now, First Era 808, Yokudans arrive in Hammerfell.
Okay, hold on. I may be misinterpreting here. Because it just says, men appear in High Rock, Hammerfell, Cyrodiil, and Skyrim. That may be talking about the Nedic people.
Yes, I believe it is.
Because I see here...
Because Needs lived in Hammerfell before the Yokudans came over.
Yeah, I mean, I see... I mean, it doesn't give us an actual date. It says it's a miscellaneous event. The Natutambu fight to a standstill among themselves to decide who will lead the charge against the left-handed elves. That's still on Yokuda.
Yes, that's still during the Wars of Yokuda.
Let's see. Diagna, Avatar the Hoonding, brings Lorechat weapons to the Yokudans, which prove instrumental in defeating the elves.
Okay, I would also like to point that out. It's really weird that Orichalc is given to the Red Guards, but it's so highly associated with the orcs.
Yeah.
Like even in, I'm pretty sure the whole thing of Diagna bringing Orichalc weapons to the Yokudans was a thing in Daggerfall. Like that was in lore in Daggerfall, despite the fact that all orcish weapons are made out of Orichalc. So it just seems exceptionally bizarre.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, this mass colonization occurred in 4 successive waves during the 8th and 9th centuries of the First Era. So, Charlie is right. Let's see. Did I even add? I don't think I added any regatta stuff. Oh, okay. No. Here it is. Yokuda sinks and Yokudans arrive in Hammerfell. So First Era 808 is what I have. Yeah, 8th and 9th centuries. Yeah. Yeah, so that would be when that happened, and then you're absolutely right. The Alessian Rebellion happens 600 years prior. Yeah. So yeah.
I believe by now the First Empire has already been established.
Yes. Yeah. We've had a couple hundred years.
Yeah, I think it's already been established, and then soon it will fall and get established again under Riemann.
I actually wrote a short thing about the start of the Middle Dawn as part of a character backstory in the D&D campaign I'm playing. Which
hold on.
What have you found?
Salas Inn contains ruins from 3 different cultures. First, the unknown clan of aliens who initially built the site in the Merithic era. Second, the Coralania High Elves who occupied it early and most recently. And then the Yokudan colonists who came with the Ragata.
Yeah. What I was saying is that I'm pretty sure that in the drug quest, where you get really high in a tent, I'm fairly certain that the people you're fighting are the Coralania High Elves.
Good intro to...
But they're still there, though.
I think that time we got high in
No, I don't think the aliens were there anymore.
I know, they weren't there, but they were still there previously.
Oh, no. I wasn't saying that they weren't there previously.
Oh, you mean like whenever the...
Yes, specifically when the Regatta came over.
I wonder if they still were. Huh.
Probably not. I think by then most aliens would have been disseminated into other races.
And that's kind of what because they didn't actually disappear. Like the remnants just sort of bred into other races. So I'm wondering, probably wasn't that too much different. But then, that's digressing from the topics.
John, have you thought of an answer? Have you thought of a question yet?
Right now I'm reading about the Need, and it says that they existed a while back, but I'm not really seeing on what happened to them later on. Did they just become Redguard, or did they become did they just move to Cyrodiil? Like, what all happened to the Need?
Okay, so here's kind of what happened to the Needs. The thing to know is that the Needs were effectively the first Manish colonists of Tamriel. I use the term colonists very loosely because it's hard to tell whether they actually came from somewhere else or if they had always existed on Tamriel.
They were part of the Wandering Elnathay. So.
Yeah. They were part of the Wandering Elnathay, so some of them may have come from another land, some of them probably settled down within Tamriel proper. As time went on, Nedic culture got less and less popular, and the whole concept that they started getting bred out by other races. Imperials, specifically the Colovians and the Nibonese, started outpacing the Needs. It is believed by some that the Needs and the Aldmer or Altmer had interbred together to create the Bretons. When you eventually get to the final point of the Needs, the only remaining portion of Needic culture was in Hammerfell. In Hammerfell, where Needs and Mer lived alongside with one another. Now, fast forward to First Era 808, you have the Regatta that sails over. The Regatta sees people with pointed ears, immediately flips their shit, and starts a war, wherein they kill everyone in their path, including the last of the Needs. Okay. Effectively, the last of the Needic tribes, the last of Needic culture, is completely slaughtered by Red Guards.
Brutal.
I believe the only technically remaining Needic tribe is a single Kothringi tribe in Black Marsh, who are only remaining because technically they're all skeletons now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they're all just animated skeletons with a glamour on them that makes them look like their old selves. But they can't produce any more children. They can't procreate, nothing like that. They're just skeletons now.
Yikes.
That was a fun quest line.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the stuff about high elves and the Nedic people creating the Bretons, essentially.
Yeah, the Durrani clan, which alright, so the Durrani clan is a really weird thing because apparently the Durrani were also Aldmer. Like it's one of those old clans that were. All right, so Andrew,
it's an old family.
It was one of those whole concepts of a very old family that dated back to the Aldmer, because it was the Durrani clan who rediscovered the Adamantine Tower and named it Durrani Tower. But because the Aldmer eventually became the Altmer, changing by not changing at all, the Durrani clan effectively continued. It's hard to say if any of them were actually still blood related to the original founders of the clan, but this is the concept of a clan after all. Even if no one is directly blood related to the original founder, the clan can still exist so long as there are families within it.
Yeah, it's more ideological.
Yeah.
Here's a question.
There it is.
Does anyone feel that the slow decline of the Needs was something that was intentional to basically get rid of them, or if it was something that just came about as a result of cultural shifts?
I think it might have been cultural shifts.
Definitely cultural shift, because where we have the Needs, we also have the Nibonese and the Colovians, and we've got the Atmorans. I don't believe they actually originated from Atmora.
Really?
But the Nords, the Nords are like an intermingling between the Nedic people and the Colovians. No, other way around. Nords and Nedic people intermingled, and that's where we ended with Colovians. I had that right.
I actually do have a thing regarding Atmora, if you'd like to hear it, regarding the concept that Atmora was once Altmora, and this is why the Falmer don't like the Nords.
I love it. Go.
Okay, so the initial basis of this theory is to understand that at one point Atmora was known as Altmora. Now, this was not at any point during even the Morethk era. This was Dawn era shenanigans. This was as the world was being created. Effectively, my theory goes on to say that during the Dawn era, Atmora was once known as Altmora. It hadn't frozen over yet. It hadn't started becoming a freezing deathland. And it was populated by old Elnathe. When you eventually had the war that broke out between Auriel and Lorkhan, wandering Elnathe, who had sided with Lorkhan, of course, pushed the old Elnathe of Altmora out, renaming it Atmora and claiming it for themselves. What happens is that those old Elnathe who were kicked out sailed over to northern Tamriel. They settled in Skyrim and Resday. My part of this concept does originate from my idea that the Falmer and Dwemer are not descended from the Aldmer, rather they are Aldmer equivalents. They are a subgradient right below Old Elnophe, same as Aldmer are a subgradient right below Old Elnophe. This ends up becoming the case that they split into the Dwemer and the Falmer, and when the Falmer start noticing Atmorans sailing over to Skyrim, they freak out, because these are the people who kicked them out of their old home, but now there is no other place for them to go. At least last time, they could sail over to a place that hadn't been settled yet. But now you have ships and ships of Atmorans sailing over saying, hey guys, what's up? They don't remember us at all, but we remember them. We know what they did. We still have records. And now they're coming over here, and they're probably going to end up pushing us out of our home.
I am 1,000%
reactionary response of the attack on Starthal.
That's interesting because because as far as I'm aware, the Hist and Gonians, and also like different kinds of Khajiit were already very widespread across Tamriel. Were they widespread as far as like the north of Tamriel?
Possibly.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
if there's nothing really to say that they weren't though.
There's nothing
actually there is. There is a I forget what or where this actually comes from, but there's a thing stating that the saber cats in Skyrim are actually direct descendants of the Senche or whatever you call them.
Yes. However, let's also remember that there are mountain lions and whatnot that live in Clovia. So I would say, all right, that's also another thing to note, that you have to separate Sench lions and Sench tigers from Khajiit.
I think I
sure about that.
Yes, because even the Khajiit separate them.
I think
for the Khajiit, it's the equivalent of like saying that a human and a monkey are the same race.
We're getting into this.
No. I think it's in the flavor text of one of the.
Please do find it.
I remember it. Also,
it's one of the crown mounts. It's the.
It's one of the saber cat mounts.
Yeah, it's one of the saber cat mounts. Looking for steeds both fierce and impressive. They'll reach me the Upper Karth Valley, who trained them as mounts, claim that the Nightfall saber cat is sacred to the Age of Prince Nocturnal. I found it had it on like the Google listing underneath the actual link. You know what I'm talking about? It's basically just a dark, like a dark colored Sench mount.
Nightfall. Found it. The reach me of the Upper Karth Valley. Who trained them as mounts, swear that the Nightfall variant is sacred to the Daedric Prince Nocturnal.
See, now that I hit Control F, it doesn't actually.
Oh, are you not finding it? Because I just found it. I'm on the mounts page.
If the Nightfall saber cat is just a black gray Sench. What the hell?
Where is it?
Oh, here we go. Let's see.
What the hell is that noise?
Okay, no, it was a forum comment. Is what it was.
Oh.
Nightfall saber cat slips clips of my costume, and Nightfall saber that too. So okay. Well,
but yeah,
so I just want to push back on the idea that
I was hoping you would.
that the say mountain lions or whatever are not actually Khajiit. No, of course they're Khajiit.
They could be.
Who do you think the Renridra Kryn are in Oblivion? You think it's the Khajiit guy who's like, your money or your life? Well, no.
Hey.
What does that have to do with taking land back? It's the mountain lions that rip you a new one anytime you go out into the...
Michael, you think everything's a Khajiit.
Let's
everything is a Khajiit.
I really like this idea just because the idea of like mountain lions and saber cats being like the Khajiit equivalent of crazy survivalist preppers.
Maybe.
That just live in the mountains and murder people.
So here's the thing.
And I'm also convinced, and then I'll stop after this, but I'm also convinced that all of the Alfiques that you see in ESO are actually spies for the main.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Just saying.
Every time I see a fucking house cat in the world, I'm just like,
I'm on to you.
I know what you're doing.
Yeah. All right, I need to find it again. But the reason I say that you need to separate Sench Tigers and Sench Lions from Khajiit proper is because there is an in-character forum post from one of the lore masters as a Khajiit character explaining, oh, these tailless, furless people don't know what they're talking about. They don't get that when we say Sench, we're not specifically referring to just referring to just the first stock. Effectively, Sench into Agra is referring to the actual body shape.
It's called Trail and Tide, and it's a in-character interview with Moonbusha Punal. And but I counter that by saying Khajiit must be the best liars.
That is accurate, I guess.
Khajiit are elves, but they're the best liars, so they're not elves.
Oh, they like to adopt other gods just for giggles, like because it amuses them. Like,
well, I see John is amused.
The thing I'm getting at though is like, any amount of lore attached to a shiny object that the corporate is trying to sell you should really be looked at with a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of critical of weird stuff.
The other thing is that there's an in-game book in Skyrim called The Tale of Drozira, which talks about some Sench who went north to be a part of the Battle of Red Mountain became
no one talks about that book.
Non-sapient. And I don't believe that either.
Happens to Khajiit sometimes, and they come back wrong.
Yeah,
and I like that idea. Just because, like, there's a lot of magic and shit that can go wrong. So
by the way, can I read one of my favorite things from the Lore Master Archives?
No.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So this is from Ikantar Shimmerine Answers Your Questions, of course, by Ikantar Shimmerine. The question is as follows. As an Imperial, I am fully aware of the bitter differences that divide the Altmer and my people. However, I wish that one day we will set aside our hatred and prejudice for each other. What will it take for our two races to coexist in peace and friendship? Do you ever think it is possible? From Alessandro of Cyrodiil. Ikantar Shimmerine says, your question, Imperial, is either naive or disingenuous. The Empire of Cyrodiil was founded on the blood of elves and battened on elven genocide. For thousands of years, Central Tamriel has whelped human empires, each bloodier than the last, spreading grief and savagery to every corner of the continent. We Altmer have long stood by, patiently waiting for men to exhaust their penchant for warfare and embrace civilized behavior. But we can no longer bet the cycle of bloodshed and abstention. Now the Aldmeri Dominion marches on Cyrodiil. There will be peace, yes, once the cancer of human imperialism is extirpated utterly. This is a nice dry wine, by the way.
Honestly, I fucking love
you ever flex so hard?
like, all right, technically he's not wrong, because earlier today I ended up reading the Valenwood page to Pocket Guide to the Empire 3rd edition. And yeah, the Valenwood page kind of goes on to explain why the Bosmer don't even like the Imperials.
Yeah, that's a lot of good reasons.
Because if you want me, here's the best way to explain why the Bosmer don't like the Imperials. Hey guys, remember when Imperial Europe cut up Africa into a shit ton of arbitrary countries?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the Empire did in Valenwood.
Yeah,
I did.
Does anyone know even how to submit questions for the Lore Masters Archives? I've never seen
really sure
poster.
I know it's on their forums.
I know the Icefire Warden has done it.
Yeah, I think it might be a thing on their forums. Like they'll occasionally have a thing of like, "Hey, ask so and so your questions," and they'll like pick a few questions.
Because like I didn't know if I could just like PM Lawrence Schick and be like, "Hey." It's my question.
PM Lawrence Schick. Hey, answer this in character.
Yeah, no, you have to ask in character. Like,
ask in character
because my main RP character is a total arrogant scumbag. And
ask in character and expect Frassus of Elenir not to be an asshole to you.
It's interesting that the result of the invasion of Valenwood and the inside fighting and all that ensued, it made them into, like, this is according to the 3rd edition, but like it
cutting out. Sharks eating the
Astra, you're dying.
Yeah, your mic did something funny. We lost most of what you said.
Type it out and we'll read it.
No, we can't hear you now. I saw your mouth moving. I'm not actually. I can't hear you. I'm not messing with you right now.
Yeah.
I've done that before, so I don't blame skepticism. I had a guy one time who would adjust his mic, be like, "Okay, can you hear me now?" I go, "No." He'd go, "Damn it!" And he'd like try and fix it. Okay, how about now? Nope. And he'd go, like it went on for like 15 minutes. I thought it was so funny.
That happened to me with my old Razer mic.
Fucking Razer.
I have another Razer mic. I use my old Razer headset, but I don't use the headset. I actually just use the Siren, the Siren microphone over here. It's really far away from my mouth, so I sound distant.
I paid good money for a headset, and the mic was too short for my fat fucking head, so now I just have to shout towards my Logitech little webcam.
All right, so John, I think you're about to ask something.
Oh, I was. Since we were talking about Valenwood a second ago, how often do races get together and just try and purge Bosmer? These fuckers are a bunch of cannibals, and they eat like people. Like that's some of their diet sometimes, especially when they go to war. They eat people. You would think that would freak enough people out to say, "Hey, let's just wipe these crazy fuckers off the map." You know, let's try it.
Well, John, here's the thing.
Hold on. Let me
eat you if you don't bother.
What's wrong with eating people?
Exactly.
I've sensed some serious misgivings about the Bosmer.
Because I can kind of help set the record straight here.
Well, hold on. Because the Bosmer aren't just cannibals. It's not like you go to the South Pacific. Yeah, it's not like, oh hey, there's a guy, let's eat him. Like it's not like that.
I know it's something they don't really like go out of their way for.
How many
the thing is the Bosmer, when it comes to eating people, that is part of the meat mandate. But the Bosmer never engage in war, which is to say that they never initiate war. They never try to expand their territory.
There's the 5 Years' War with elsewhere. That I don't know that they initiated that.
Yeah. Part of the thing is that Bosmer tend to only do defensive wars, and even then, in a lot of cases, it seems like a lot of Bosmer soldiers seem less keen on killing someone and much more keen on incapacitating someone. Injure the other side's soldiers rather than killing them. Because if they're injured, they'll have to take time to heal. It's going to take a long time for them to actually get ready to fight again. So you defeat the other side by incapacitating their numbers.
Yeah.
The other thing you should probably think about is that this idea
is black tear. That's crazy.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it might be a little bit of a lag.
Okay. So the other thing to keep in mind is that this idea that we should get together and do whatever, because these people are bad, is pretty much non-existent in Tamriel. For instance, Vivek had children with Molag Bal, which went on to cause all manner of trouble throughout, at least Morrowind, but maybe further on out. And Tiber Septim was like, "Hey, bro, we should be allies."
Yeah.
So nobody cares.
Yeah.
Another thing to note is that
they're not doing it to us.
The initial wave of, hey, let's go kill the Bosmer because they're evil, wasn't even because of the cannibalism thing. If I recall, it was because of the Marakati selective.
I was going to say, wasn't this to do with Alesia somehow?
Yeah. The thing is, when John has left, he has disconnected.
The trade fell on him.
Damn it, John.
Then.
I think
I will save it for when he gets back.
One thing I'm going to add is that so people are always on about the Bosmer being cannibals, but if it wasn't for the Green Pack, they could literally just shapeshift into anything.
Wow.
That's spooky. They're like all eldritch horrors.
They wouldn't exactly have control over it either. I mean, that was
once again
they needed the pact.
Once again, whenever I say the whole thing that the Bosmer initially made a pact with Hircine and then made a pact with Ifrei, my statement there is more that the Aldmer who had arrived in Valen Wood arrived there and found, oh crap, we are basically prey. We cannot actually survive here. We need some way to survive, some way to rise up in the food chain. So make a pact with Hircine. He's the father of the hunt. We need to hunt and kill things. It seems like the perfect choice. So you make a pact with Hircine. He says, all right, you guys can shapeshift now. What he doesn't tell you is that he forgot how to tell you guys not to shapeshift. So you just keep shapeshifting.
As Daedric princes do.
Yeah.
Always
Well, I
read
mean,
your fine
let's
print,
think.
guys.
Well, I mean, let's think about this. For Hircine, why would not being able to shapeshift be why would not being able to stop your shapeshifting very necessarily be a problem? I mean, you could just keep hunting anyway. That's not much is changing. But of course, they are elves. They don't really like constant change. So eventually, part of them did make the pact with Ifrit, who gave them a shape, but also gave them some restrictions to what all they could do.
Can you imagine like going to the bank and you're at like the ATM and then suddenly you're a bear?
Suddenly you're a bear and you're quite upset. And as you try and put in your PIN number, and you've turned into a slug.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like this is a pain in the ass. Like, okay, Ifrit, get the fuck down here. We need to talk.
Please help.
Just this bear stuck
Send
with
aid.
awkwardly trying to carry a stack of money is just stuck in my head.
Got like a wallet.
He just screams, and then like Azura covers all the cat's ears and is just like, don't listen to him.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. The whole Khajiit mythos of our ancestors couldn't keep their shape and Azura helped us. That makes me think that it was literally half of the Aldmer became the Bosmer, and then the other half probably became the Khajiit.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I have a lot of thoughts.
Mac unmuted his mic.
Here we go.
Oh no, Mac, tell me your thoughts. I'm curious.
I think I don't. Michael's got some issues with the whole Khajiit armor thing.
No.
It's fine.
I'm not saying that they are presently Mer. I'm saying that at one point they were Mer, but then they learned how to lie, so they're not Mer anymore.
What do you think of that, Michael?
No.
No.
And I'll tell you why. All right.
All right.
I explained this in the Khajiit Lorecast, so if you really, really want an answer, go there. But the basic idea is that remember that races are ideology born as human. And the Khajiit were already in Tamriel by the time the Altmer got there. Fine. And they were already Khajiit.
Yeah.
Sorry, they're already Khajiit. They were never a part of Old Maris, and the whole thing about them and the Bosmer, my suspicion, because I have to look at it more. And this is why we need Jonathan Bernstein in here, because I really needed him on the cast. And
he's never in here.
It's so sad. But he's the Bosmer guy, and there is this weird connection between the Khajiit and the Bosmer, and it might.
They share gods.
They might have something to do with the ooze, but I don't. It's been too long since I've read up on that to really be able to say about it. But they had once been similar, and my guess is that they were undifferentiated Elnofey. And then they were both altered. The Khajiit were altered by a Daedra, that being Azura, and the Bosmer were altered by an Aedra, that being Ifrit.
Yeah. See, if that's the case, I feel like it could be potential that the Khajiit were altered first, and then the other ones, the ones who hadn't been altered by Ifrit yet, were still just part of the ooze. And then you have the Altmer who sail over and make the pact with Hircine. So they become part of the ooze as well, being around it so often, and then they make the pact with Ifrit. So you get a combination of both the Aldmer who sailed over and the undifferentiated Elnofey who had originally been there.
I just think it's narratively satisfying to have, the grandeur of the race of elves emerge from the Khajiit that no one really gives enough respect to.
I would like to make it a point. That would make a lot of sense about where the Ohms and Ohms Rat come from. I guess because they have features that are very very Bosmer, And
yes, but do keep in mind that only specifically the Ohms can actually pass for a Bosmer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because the Ohms rot have fur and a tail and cat ears.
And they're adorable. And they have a fine career in anime.
Or do the Bosmer have the features of Ohms?
No. I say no, and I have a reason. Antlers.
Actually, can we talk about the antlers for a minute?
Yes.
Wait, shit. Holy shit, I just made a big connection.
Yes,
go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. What do we know about the Indrik?
Absolutely fucking nothing.
No.
Nothing.
We know
the Merithic era.
That I personally want to set them on fire.
We know that the Indrik themselves are 4-eared deer birds. Unicorns
with dog faces.
Aren't they based in like an already mythological creature?
Yes. In Russian mythology, the Indrik is the king of the forest. So effectively, he's kind of just all animals put together.
Is there a Lady N reference? That's literally what they are.
Awesome. So here's the thing.
Okay, now I don't want to set him on fire anymore.
According to some lore, the Indrik are related to Jeffrey. And as we know, Jeffrey is the Altmeri name for Ifre. The difference, of course, being that Ifre is seen as the god of the forest. Meanwhile, for the Altmer, they see Ifre as Jeffrey, the god of music and stories. Because, of course, not a whole lot of... Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's not a whole lot of forests on Somerset, so why would you have a god of the forest when forest doesn't make up most of what you have? Ifre is also the storyteller.
I mean, they do have forests on Somerset.
Forests, but they also kind of the Altmer are they prune everything.
Yeah. It's potential that there used to be more forest and they kind of...
Oh, thank fucking God you guys said that. So after this, I actually have something else that I need to pull up. After this, there is something else that I need to pull up. But
maybe that's where the original Morag Tong came from? Pruning the forest?
Yeah.
Because Morag Tong, if we translate that into English, is the Foresters Guild. The Foresters Guild. Yeah. Because
I dig it.
That's what they do. So
but here's the thing. Because the Indriks are so closely tied to Jeffrey and therefore to Ifre, there is the potential that the only reason you have Bosmer who get antlers is purely because of that connection with Ifre and thus their transitive connection to the Indrik. But thank you for bringing up foresting and whatnot, because you guys just reminded me of something very, very important. Excellent. So one of the lore books from Somerset that I've read, that I only read because I was going into the Somerset books section and looking up different sapiarchs to see what different sapiarchs had written. One of them, by Ambalisse, the Sapiarch of Zoological Studies, is called Restoring the Welwas, which basically goes on to assert that Welwas, along with Gaiatus and Iliadi, were once native to Somerset. But because they are so dangerous and so territorial, they were all wiped out because, hey, we're trying to settle here and we're just getting slaughtered by these creatures. And Ambalisse, in particular, wants to reintroduce the Welwas into Somerset, which I think is a very noble goal, because because of course you find Welwas in Craglorn and you're like, holy shit, these things actually do exist, they're still real, let's reintroduce them into another native habitat. Here's the thing though, those two creatures in particular, the Gaiatus, I can't tell you much about them. All we know is they are a fairy variant considered to be godlike beings. According to legend, Gaiatus appear as a man or a group of men who are formed by the earth. Now, that's very strange. But then there's the Iliadi, also spelled Iliadai, fairies once natives to Somerset that were giants taller than trees with eyes that cover their head. Now, I feel the statement eyes that cover their head can be one of two things. Either one, that could be saying that they were cyclopses. They were cyclopic, that they just had one eye. But I don't think that's the case. If these were creatures that were named to Somerset, just like the Welwas, let's think about defining features of the Welwas. They have fur, of course, but they also have 4 eyes. What is a giant creature we know of in lore and have met that has 4 eyes.
Really interesting.
Frost giants. What I'm saying is a relative to the frost giants may have been native to Somerset.
What the fuck?
It could be related to like how they evolved in regards to the environment. Like, what use would they have for 4 eyes?
Yeah.
So that's the trick. There's no such thing as evolution in Elder Scrolls. There's there's devolution.
Okay, I don't. All right, here's the thing. I don't think it's technically devolution. I don't think it's technically devolution. I think it is technically sideways evolution.
It's called subgradiency.
It's just subgradiency.
Yeah.
You stop your subgradient when you get some things that you like. In the case of men, they stop their subgradient because like, hey, we don't need to go any further. We're great. In the case of her, they stop their subgradient because, god damn it, we've gone too far, and if we go further, it's just going to get worse. So we may as well just take this.
So it's sort of evolution, but not like our Earth evolution.
It's not. It's
increasing your attributes sideways.
It's not biological. It's ideological.
Yeah.
The ideology of Welwas.
Yeah, that's the thing that's bothering me about that though. Is it's like, what ideology can a Welwa have?
Must consume.
Well, they're predatory.
Yes. They're predatory. They may use 4 eyes, 2 sets to actually keep track of their prey, and the other set of eyes to look around.
Okay. No, I'm gonna take some philosophy into this a little bit.
Yes, please.
Aristotle believed.
Oh God.
Aristotle believed that every creature on this planet has a function, right? And that function is whatever that creature happens to be best at. A fish's function is to swim. A lion's function is to chase down and then maul its prey. So if we apply that same kind of thing to a Welwa, for example, whatever its function is, that is its ideology. And that is why it looks the way it does, because that's what its ideology is. It doesn't need a frontal lobe or the ability to reason to have an ideology, because when we take out the consciousness from it, we end up with something similar to a function.
Right, that's another thing. Yes, that's exactly what a human's purpose is. It's just bare reproduction.
I said ideology is action.
Yeah. All right. So regarding the ideology thing, I thought of a very good example for that. For whenever someone may ask you the question of like, can you give me like a more solid example of how ideology can change who you are, how it can change how you appear? While it's kind of hard to say for mortals, look to the Daedra. Look at Daedric Titans. The Daedric Titans who still serve Molag Bal are very much cold and blue in terms of color. But then look at Ash Titans. Daedric Titans who decided, nah, Molag Bal's a bitch, I'm going to go serve Mehrunes Dagon. Suddenly, their physical appearance starts to change. They become fiery, burning with passion. The same goes for Jamora. Jamora who serve Mehrunes Dagon look very much either bright red or dark red. Meanwhile, the ones who serve Molag Bal are either purple or blue.
Same with the Watchers.
Yeah. So that becomes kind of a scenario where I believe the way you can look at it is the Daedra are one of the few creatures in existence who changing your ideology can still physically change what you look like.
Or at least as rapidly as that, yeah.
Yeah, because the Daedra themselves are still kind of in that hyper state of ideological acceptance.
I can see that. Oh, well.
Belle, what are you drawing?
Charlie, my challenge to that is that every Jamora you encounter in ESO, no matter what prince they're serving, is blue and purple.
Yeah, this is the problem with having these kind of
but
like
do we ever meet any
ideology
Jamora
discussions about pre-formed.
Yeah, actually, you meet some that serve Namira, and they look exactly like Moloch balls.
Mac, you first.
Same with there's a Dremora that serves Samora.
Too many people talking all at once. So Mac, you first.
Oh, he asked if we met any. I think he asked, do we meet any Dremora who don't serve either Dagon or Moloch Ball? In ESO, I mean. Like the only other Dremora that I've encountered besides the ones of those two princes are the ones that are associated with that pathetic excuse for a Namira quest, and they look exactly like the ones that serve Moloch Ball. So that's sort of my challenge to the idea.
That sounds like laziness on a dev.
What about
it's absolutely.
What about the Alambris twins? One's red, one's blue.
Nah.
I'm not seeing those yet. I have very limited ESO and Morrowind lore.
That's very fair. It's interesting because like a lot of the lore in ESO is very different to what we're used to in the Elder Scrolls.
That's a diplomatic way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has contradictions. It rewrites a lot of stuff. It retrofits it. It
like all of a sudden, quite a few Bosmer have antlers.
I don't dislike the bottom of it. I don't dislike a lot of it, but there's some that I do think.
There is something that has been stated about Bosmer antlers, in that if you see a Bosmer with antlers, it is one of two cases. Either one, those are actually cosmetic, like they're literally just wearing antlers that they glued on or something. Like it's effectively jewelry in that case. Or option two, a spinner added a prefix to their story, to their protonymic, that states that they have antlers.
I have a better idea
that they haven't touched on yet.
Yeah, it's more than often the first.
What's that, Dan?
Mostly. Okay, so the sort of like murky, we don't associate with her scene except when we do kind of thing that Bosma does on occasion.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that, but I really love the idea of antlers just keep popping up in certain tribes every now and then because Urakanbeg the stag might have fucked a couple of the women back in the day. And now every now and then some of the kids just pop out with antlers. Really ask
does that hold true for the Comoran King as well and his family?
Sorry, for the what?
The Comoran King, he has antlers too.
Honestly, I hope so. Just because it makes it more
interesting. I think
that's
Aiden Comoran was just wearing a crown.
Oh, personally, I fucking love the antlers.
I won't swear to it though. I think the antlers are more of a holdover from the Green Pact. That's because they can take many shapes, right? So who's to say that? While their shape is stable, who's to say they can't have animals?
Oh yeah, no. All right, it's kind of all right. So Eredon, King Comoran Eredon, it is hard to say whether or not those antlers actually belong on his head, because he is wearing the light armor Bosmer headpiece.
Oh, that hood, yeah.
I have another theory.
That is his crown. But antlers are
I have
attached.
another theory.
Yeah.
The reason we don't see antlers in future, like in lore kind of thing, is because they started chopping them off because they didn't want to be associated with her scene.
Hellboy
about in the past.
Yeah.
So here's a bit of out of game lore for you guys. MK has on his Tumblr pictures of the Bosmer. That the original idea was that male Bosmer were going to be extremely
ugly,
extremely animalistic and ugly.
Yeah.
But that the women would be absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I just saw that yesterday.
It's like the opposite of birds.
Michael, were you there when MK was talking about the whole cannibal thing, and he included that as a joke? Were you there?
I was not. No.
Yeah, he mentioned how he fucking hated the idea of traditional like elves, like wood elves. So he threw in the cannibalism just to troll the old fans.
I love it.
Yeah, and I applaud that. I applaud the fact that like even high elves aren't like traditional elves because they don't have this whole concept of, oh, we're a dying race and look at all these great wonders we used to build. No, it's, bitch, we're still alive. Look at these great wonders I'm currently building.
Yeah, basically.
The High Elves are Fëanor from the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Which is to say incredibly talented and powerful, but ruthlessly arrogant and a little bit bloodthirsty.
Yep.
So
yeah, I feel like they only get a little bit bloodthirsty when you do something to slight them, though.
If they're Fëanor, what are the Silmarils?
Huh?
If they're Fëanor, what are the Silmarils?
Towers.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I would say the Sigil Orders one.
Okay.
Is a what?
Yeah.
Is a Silmaril.
Crystal Tower.
Honestly, I mean, the Silmaril's divine light, like, subgradated twice and ultra concentrated.
I don't know. I'm bullshitting. I don't know shit about
That's what that whole cast is about.
See, I knew that one specific thing, and I thought, oh, if I say it, it'll make it sound like I know a lot.
I'll sound cool.
And I don't.
Well, I'm sure there's something in Elder Scrolls that is divine essence subgradated twice and ultra concentrated. It's got there.
The Silmarillion also has the concept of music being like the basis for creation.
Oh yeah, the Inelegant.
Yeah, and that's absolutely a major thing in Tess, which is great.
Yeah, tonal magic.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think we'd have more mods.
So I want to throw out there an idea that's near
okay.
and
To
dear
be
my
fair,
heart.
we do have quite a few gods.
Wait, hold on, Michael. What?
So yeah, I think I'm getting some. I think I'm having to deal with some lag, so I apologize for that. But I have an idea I want to throw out there that's near and dear to my heart, and that is this: that the Bretons are the answer to the man-mer problem, because the Elnofey subgraded it down into man and mer, and then man and mer united into something new, and they are the answer other than Amaranth.
And they unfortunately took only half of Altmer culture with them and left the other half out.
Well, they don't need it. It's
the other half.
Thing.
Or Michael, when I'm saying that they left the other half out, I'm talking about the be nice to your fellow person.
I don't know. The Bretons aren't.
The Altmer are not known for that.
Yeah, they are. They're known for being nice if you're actually doing your job right.
Oh, please. Yes, because
that was the joke I was making.
It's okay. It's okay. We got it.
All these Altmer, they're known for their politeness.
They're known for their politeness to me, but that might be because I'm an Altmer, so I'm a result of nepotism.
I think there will probably be some that will not be polite to you.
Oh no, there are plenty who are assholes. I will be back in a hot minute.
But I've been replaying portions of the MQ and ESO, and I just did the mission where you meet with the 3 leaders of the alliances, and they are all jerks.
Yeah,
that's kind of the theme.
On my other character, my main guy, I'm trying to work through Cadwell's gold, and I'm doing the Bretons. And Emmerich's not so bad in that. I'm like, all right, there's some times where I'm kind of like, I don't know about this guy, but most of the time he seems like a pretty cool guy. But man, you get to him in the main quest, and he's a total jerk. So he's not as bad as Thorin. Thorin is a whiz.
I like Emmerich.
Multifaceted beings. Who would have thunk?
I mean, that's what you get with Bill Nighy. So
I love him. I love him so much.
I watched Hot Fuzz last night.
You need
Underworld, bro. Underworld.
Nah, Cornetto trilogy all the way because he's in all 3. Very.
I mean, Kate Beckinsale's in Underworld too, and she's Irene. It's just so fantastic.
Also, Van Helsing.
20% of why I'm in the Dominion.
How about that corset in Van Helsing?
Fan, very fan.
Everyone
take a moment, and we're back.
Okay.
Take a moment.
Moment of silence for.
Just out of respect.
Out of respect for Kate Beckinsale's tits.
Not just that, just the way she carries herself in everything she does. It's so fantastic. fantastic.
Like her,
she talks to you. Then she speaks, and you're just like, everybody shut up and listen to this woman.
Her and Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron's a tall glass of water. Let me tell you what.
Tall glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
Are we back in the 50s?
You've seen that woman.
Now you're on the Charlie.
Jesus. Okay.
He's
So
like,
Lord.
Lord, right? Yes.
Lord.
So let's see. We talked a little bit about Bosmer, Khajiit, Altmer.
I got a thing.
Yeah, there was another thing we talked about.
No, I mean I have a thing.
Oh, you have a
been missing.
You have a thing.
Yeah. So, what are you guys' thoughts on the teaser for the XESO expansion?
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I haven't seen it.
I have had to delete so many threads about this on Tesla. It seems like every 30 minutes, someone else is like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" They're like, "Dude, there's already a thread over here. Go." And
by the way, to Mac and Michael, I'm terribly sorry. Riddlethar made me lazy this week, and I haven't gotten to Somerset yet. But I do now currently have a working title for the essay. Praxis and Apractism, a detailed look as to how distances in culture can cause miscommunication. Or its alternate working title, Praxis and Apractism, how Belle uses a word a lot and I don't think it means what she thinks it means.
Riddlethar is not to blame for your failures.
Yes, he is. Look, well, all I'm saying is that he's getting me there, but he's taking the really long route.
You need to stop and look at the moons along the way, man. Have some sugar.
I am. That's the problem. He's taking me the extra long route.
Listen, words are hard.
Yes, words are hard.
Word hard. Game.
Word hard. I only art.
That's, oh man. I think that's why I prefer to write poetry, because there's less words.
I don't know. I mean, you got so much you got to worry about, though. You got your your meter.
I don't need words anymore. I'll make statues to convey everything I mean.
I mean, what form am I going to use? I mean,
Andrew, that's why you do syllabic verse poetry. All you got to worry about is the syllable count.
Oh,
and then,
the easiest is free verse prose. Like,
oh yeah.
Like just
I missed the last verse is a little bit harder than free verse.
Follow Uncle Walt's footsteps. The dude set a standard. Sorry, that was my English major coming up.
Charlie, you reminded me of something with your Riddlethar comment that I wanted to ask Michael about, because I think he would know.
Okay.
It is my current. I've heard two different theories. Michael, are you familiar with the term lessware?
Of course he is.
The hell?
I ask because I've read two different definitions of it, and I'm curious which one he accepts and the larger community as a whole accepts. The Imperial book says that it's basically another name for it's a paradise promised by Riddlethar, and may or may not be another word for the sands behind the stars. And then there's that whole, colony on Secunda thing. Are they mutually exclusive? One or the other? Both?
Sorry, I was away for a minute. What's going on?
He's asking you about lessware.
As far as we know, it's the lunar colony, but the sands behind the stars is something different.
So, what do you take it to be Riddlethar's promise of paradise? Is that just the pocket guy got it wrong?
I'd have to reread.
I would imagine. I mean, there's the easy answer of, well, the moon colony was named after Riddlethar's promise. Mm-hmm. Same way we might science fiction. Hey, here's a planet that's called Eden.
Yeah.
I mean, same kind of thing.
I like that idea. I was just curious because
allegedly when you're on the moons, you're literally running on moon sugar. Like the sand is moon sugar.
We live on a bowl of cocaine.
Come on. All for sale at fair prices. Come on. All for sale at fair prices.
One of these lore chats is just going to be like, oh yeah, I'm drinking this, I'm drinking that. I'm like, well, I'm just doing a whole line of cocaine for, reasons.
All right, let's go.
Wait, do you mean you guys don't do that?
It's a game.
Why do you think I'm so switching?
That's why I opened up the lore chat with we masquerade as an Elder Scrolls lore chat, but really it's a beer appreciation lore
I
chat.
thought it was just an elaborate drug ring.
Oh, so this is Wrecking Ball from Northern.
Everything we say is coded.
In Spokane, Washington, and plug 1.5 ABV, 100 IBUs. It has a very malty sort of primary flavor with some bitterness on the back end, and there's some notes of hickory and
the diet.
It's beer. It's beer. Drink it with a hot dog already.
No,
I've got cider from Adelaide.
I'm a beer nerd. Right? Like Elder Scrolls, Pokemon, beer. That's my thing.
Well done.
That's a great combination.
That is a
great combination.
Fucking betcha it is.
I got Mechanics, Elder Scrolls, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Okay.
I love that last one.
That's my triad.
I love too many. I have too many goddamn interests. Holy shit.
God damn it, Bill. That last one reminded me that I was very upset yesterday. Because yesterday was just a recap episode.
Oh, I already prepared for that.
Why, though? Why have a recap episode?
So anyways, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has the concept of Kalpas in it.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Eventually you get to a Kalpa where Poochie doesn't exist, and thus Jolene doesn't go to jail for some reason.
Yeah. And then there's the Kalpa where everyone's a cowboy.
Yes, that's my favorite one.
Yes, it's the best.
Actually, I really want to write more like Western-inspired
Me too.
stuff.
My partner's current special.
So heck yeah.
My partner's current special interest is cowboys. Like ever since Red Dead.
All right. So here's
all right,
here's
everyone,
a
come
thought.
to Texas.
Here's a thought I was having.
Start appropriating my culture.
Yeah.
Seriously, get out of our
Australians
culture.
are just melted Texans.
Yes.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're British Texans. That's what you guys are.
Yeah.
All right.
We
So
both have venomous animals living in our
Belle, here's a thought I was having. So, as you know, whenever a mage is using magicka, they use their imagination to shape it. They have some form that they feel the magicka must take in order to look like something. Basically, the only difference between a sorcerer's encase ability and a dragon knight's dragon talons ability is the fact that the sorcerer wants it to look like dark crystals and the dragon knight wants it to look like giant claws.
Yeah.
By this logic, could it be possible for a magician in the Elder Scrolls series to make a stand?
Yes.
They just make their magic always look like a stand.
Yeah. Absolutely. And well, I mean, also, you could also have a Dremora or Daedra like bound to you.
This is also true.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
And they would be bound to you because, like, if you could go with the logic of like it maybe is like a reflective. Oh wait, okay, so. What if you could pull in your alternate version of yourself from like Lig or something?
Oh God!
and that's your
can you
stand.
date them?
The alternate version of yourself who's better at magic.
Would the appearance
The alternate
of
dreg.
but like
the dreg
horizontally
concept.
flipped.
The
I'm just
dreg
imagining.
mirror of yourself.
You mean the Billy concept of yourself? The Billy.
I have a,
Aw, Max gone.
I have a theory in regards to that concept of magic. I imagine it would also have something to do with your cultural upbringing. That would have effect on how you see magic and how you see the world around you. So I imagine cultural upbringing would affect.
I mean, when you get right down to it, technically the Red Guards hate magic, but then sword singing is effectively just advanced mathematical magic.
That's cool.
Hey Charlie, did
Oh no, what?
did Dio reach heaven through violence?
Yes. Fuck evaluated divinity.
Shut up.
Am I wrong?
I don't know. Maybe.
Are you Bell? Are you trying to assert that Dio is Jubal?
No.
You're the one saying it.
No. Bell, you're on notice.
I think Amaranth.
I understand if I'm no longer invited to these.
No, keep coming. This is great.
I unfortunately read the Dio Over Heaven book, and there's some very good conversational pieces that could be tied into test lore, which is basically like making your own reality. It's a lot of it's basically like a more comprehensive version of the sermons, just from Dio's point of view.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very poorly translated too, so there's also that.
I mean,
adds that kind of extra level of weird distance that you need in a sermon.
Yeah.
I mean, Agent Smith is Numidium, so.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I don't like that you're not wrong, but you're not wrong.
Myth patterns, they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yes. Holy crap, yes.
So who is the
Oracle? The reality that you prefer. What?
Who is the Oracle in Coda?
What, in JoJo or?
No, in Coda.
Oh.
They were saying Dio, not Neo, this whole time.
Oh, I was thinking of Matrix. Never mind.
That's fine. I mean, we have discovered two great links now.
Yeah,
I'm so confused.
Same.
I am so lost.
I actually have never read or seen anything about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in my life. I'm just sort of
fantastic. It's fantastic.
The more you read, the less you know.
I know.
So,
I know.
Right.
The more you know.
All right, so guys, here's the thing. Part 1 is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Part 2 is ancient Maya technologies with strippers. Part 3 is Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
Amazing.
Part 4 is Suburbia, I think.
No, oh yeah. It's just like a sitcom, Suburbia sitcom.
Yeah, sitcom
also
Suburbia.
A murder, no, David Bowie murder mystery.
Yes, it is sitcom Suburbia with David Bowie murder mystery. Yeah, part 5 is The Godfather with gay teenagers.
Yeah.
Part 6 is Girls' Prison.
Yeah.
Part
Prison.
7 is
Cowboys.
The Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, but
with
Cowboys.
Jesus.
And Jesus.
And then part 8 is currently The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh boy.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yes. Any other questions?
Also, you can probably confirm this, but Josuke is not also Josuke, but is not Josuke, and Dio Brando is Dio Brando, but is also Diego Brando.
Yes.
Yeah, and Kira Yoshikage and Kira Yoshikage are two different people.
Yes.
Oh fuck.
With the same stand.
Yeah, with the same stand, but Josuke and Josuke are two different stands, but there's the same person, but also not the same person.
One of them has a stand called Soft and Wet. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's all right. So just as a fun little tangent, there is a power in part 8 called Soft and Wet.
Yeah.
He is a power where Josuke will make bubbles that steal attributes from someone. They can steal their sight, their hearing, their sense of touch. It can get far more abstract.
Face right now.
Dan, you don't understand. It can get far more abstract because he can steal the friction from the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, another question.
Is it what the fuck?
Not quite, but it should be.
Go ahead.
I know it's really boring to interpret Lig as just the opposite side of reality, I guess.
Lig is Tamriel flipped upside down with a shit ton of rivers and mud everywhere, and Dreg. Everything is Dreg.
Everything is
okay.
Dreg.
So follow on to that. If you could grab your Lig twin and pull them through the weird veil, I guess. Would it be acceptable to have sex with them or not?
Of course,
it would be acceptable.
No. Because if we go by the dirty deeds,
you're right. Okay.
Go by the dirty deeds logic, you're going to disintegrate it like instantly.
The moment you touch, the moment you come into close contact. Okay.
So basically, you're saying there's no downside.
I don't think leg is like an alternate.
Lig is isn't Lig supposed to be a previous Kalpa?
No.
Some results of a previous Kalpa or something?
Technically, as I understand, it's supposed to be the dream of Nur. And so it's not like a Rick and Morty alternate dimension where there's a version of Morty in there that Rick can just take. It's not like that. It's a whole separate thing.
God damn it. How am I going to get my twin says now?
If you were to say you write a 70-page short story and then you delete it all and then you decide I'm going to rewrite that short story, like you're going to rewrite it, it's going to be a little different. It's not going to be the same thing. Maybe you might change characters. Maybe it doesn't all have a one-to-one comparison.
Okay, so now I have a question.
Yeah.
Nur's dream. Would it be possible to say that Nur's dream was a concurrent dream with Anu's? To say that both Nur and Anu came from the same dream?
I think that all dreams are concurrent from an outside.
Well, yeah. What I mean is like, yes, all dreams are technically concurrent because let's be honest, Akavir exists right now, but Jubal has not been born yet. Mm-hmm. But it is Jubal's dream and it is happening right now. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that from an outside perspective, they are all concurrent. What I more mean is that Nur and Anu both came from the same dream. They did not originate in each other's dreams.
I think that's a valid interpretation. Absolutely.
Uncle Dan's mystery van.
So I have an addition. So
corpses in the ute.
I had this theory a while back that it was like anything that like sort of arrives in Apocrypha can also be discarded concepts that were used in the creation of the Mundus by Magnus. And I also feel like Hermaeus Mora and Magnus have a dynamic, a very, very interesting dynamic, almost as if
I'm grabbing the picture again.
Is as a reflection of Magnus. And then you also have like the population of the Dreg, or the population of Lig is mainly the Dreg, right? And also the Dreg are a little Eldritch Horror-esque. So connections between Lig, Hermaeus Mora, Apocrypha, and the Dreg. Might be something there. Also, have you guys heard of Ligama?
It sounds familiar. I don't.
Belle, I have posted the picture again. You have to look at it.
Okay. You got your
oh yeah, that one.
Yes, that one again.
Oh wow.
Anyways, Ligama is Ligama balls. Yeah, that's.
I heard something about balls.
This is Tess. If we take these second Lorechat styles in, if it can be misconstrued as a penis, it will be.
You have my
that image. That image is me.
Yes, this is what is happening right now.
Who made this just now? Who heard what I just said and made this?
I'm gonna restart the broadcast. Hi, so we're live.
So we gotta.
We good? We're good.
We gotta do the Kira fucking bites the dusto.
I did it. I activated it. Oh, this is a great broadcast. I'm loving it.
Oh my god, I'm dying.
Astra, quick, ask a question so we can get off this crazy train.
Please.
Yes. Save us from Ozzy Osbourne. Did anyone get that joke? That was hilarious.
Yeah,
I did get it.
I like the crickets I heard.
Just so long as everyone knows that was really funny.
I'm still looking at this meme and laughing.
I say that to my
Belle, is it upsetting you with its accuracy?
I'm really upset.
I say that to my I say that to my middle schoolers all the time. I make a joke and I think it is hilarious. And I'm like, if you were like 10 years older, that'd be really funny.
It only gets worse as you get older.
Oh, I know. I make references to things from
it is hilarious to me that I've learned that no, in fact, I'm not a millennial. I am the elder generation of Gen Z.
How old
which
are
is
you?
great. I am 21. Well, I was born in 1997, which means I was not born in the millennial years. I was born 1 year after.
No, I'm the I'm in the ages club. I might be turning 30 this year.
Also, I'd like to point out we have another new person.
Yes. Hello, Darren.
Welcome, Darren. If you
Welcome to our JoJo chat. I mean, Elder Scrolls.
Darren, if you have a question, please ask it now.
Yeah, please get us off this.
To save us from our own meme hell.
I wasn't prepared for this pressure.
That's basically what Astra said.
I'm laughing so hard I can't ink anymore.
So hey, I haven't been online a whole lot lately. What's going on with the teases for the next ESO chapter?
We have a tease that it will start with the.
There was a post on Twitter. It's a letter from Abner Tharn, basically saying, "Hey, I've got a job for you. Look forward to seeing you. I've been watching, what you've been doing. It's great. Whatever."
Yada yada yada.
And along with the photo that this letter is in, there's also some kind of stone tablet. It's cracked in half.
It has a dragon on it.
There's some arcane sigil on it, and there's a picture of a dragon head on it. And it's cracked right down the middle.
I'm pulling up a picture of it right now. And I'm gonna post it in my Photoshop.
That's
what it looked like.
Bell, thank you for that.
Okay. Plus 50 points to Gryffindor. They said that the next DLC would start with the word "the," which is why that's so funny.
And no one is laughing about my joke that I made on that post when someone asked, "Hey, what do you think the new name is going to be for the next DLC?" I put the winking skeever and no one laughed. You guys.
We're sorry, man.
I think the West Weld, the Nibini Bay.
No, I mean, but people are speculating the Reach right now.
Yeah, that was my guess.
No, winking skeever, absolutely.
Hit it.
The Reach? We already have the
Reach.
Oh, wow, we have dungeons from the Reach. We don't actually have the content area of the Reach.
And look on the right side. If we get the Reach, we might actually finally get centaurs in ESO.
Please, yes. Holy shit.
Because, Jesus Christ, we had them in Daggerfall.
Yes.
We have them in Legends. Just give them to us already.
Give me my horsemen.
Give me my realistic horse testicle physics.
Is that like boob physics, but a little more niche?
Red Dead Redemption.
Where do the testicles go on the centaurs?
Where the horse parts go.
Not front and center. That just seems like you're asking to round them into a bush or something.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the broadcast.
Oh, so centaur testicles is too far. But 28 million years of JoJo's is.
Well, we didn't talk about testicles, okay? By the way, the main character of the 8th part has 4 testicles.
He has 4 testicles and 2 tongues.
Everything is a JoJo reference. No,
it isn't.
And Araki goes to great lengths to constantly remind us that he has 4 testicles.
Oh, Rocky.
Oh, I should catch up on part 8.
Yeah. All right. So the joke has been made before. Belle, I don't know if you know Super Best Friends when they.
I know. Oh, I'm so sad.
I know. I'm depressed about that.
I'm really
but here's the thing. a long while ago, I believe it was last year, they had played through Eyes of Heaven.
Yeah.
They had made the joke, Wooly specifically had made the joke that JoJo's Bizarre Adventures is just us watching Hirohiko Araki discover himself sexually over the course of 30 years.
I knew that.
Yeah. Technically, it's not wrong.
And then Jump Magazine is like, hey, can't be this gay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then he made his own magazine.
Yeah.
Perfect. That is the accurate response to that.
Can't be having these concepts in our boy magazines.
So anyway.
Yeah, can we not JoJo anymore? My brain's melting.
Yes, that's fine. I want to actually answer questions, and Darren has not asked his question yet.
Oh, something about Lig? I don't quite understand it other than the whole coffee stain thing.
Yeah, Lig.
We were on that topic recently.
I feel like, and I mean, tell me if I'm off base here. I feel like Michael and I are really the most qualified people to talk about Lig here.
You probably are.
And I don't know what the fuck is going on with Lig.
Yeah, look, you cannot blame yourself.
No, it's because
it's the equivalent of saying I'm the most qualified person to talk about Mars, but you have never once been to Mars, so it's really hard to say shit about it.
So here's the thing. Lig, and all lore surrounding it. So it was the torch was passed by Michael Kirkbride to a couple of guys that we know. One being Chris Franzen. What's his name? Mojo Nation. Mojo, yeah. And then the other one being Evan, who's Potatosaurus Rex. Is that?
That's him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they kind of have their own thing where I don't know if we can call it like a circle jerk or what, but they just they have their own little pocket of lore, like just the two of them. And it has Kirkbride's blessing, and they refuse to give straight answers on a lot of stuff. It's like they just write things.
I think Andrew, I think those might be the same people that Sam told me about once, where they had made the assertion that Magnus and Marin's Dagon are the same person, and when he asked them why, their response was, "Oh, you know." You know these lore videos, they talk in riddles.
That sounds about right. And I mean, maybe I know more. Maybe I know more than I think I do. But I mean, it has to do with, at least for the Marin Zagon thing, it has to do with Hanote / City Face from the sermons, and he was taken by the Grabbers, who are the Magna Gi, and then they used Hope and the Razor to cut him into a different shape, which gives birth to Marin's Dagon. So the Razor plus Dagon, who is the Leaper Demon King, who is City Face, who is Hanote. It's weird. So
it's the stuff that's based on the sermons is going to be pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's the sheer fact that Fanuit Hen actually even shows up in ESO is staggering. Because he only shows up
tiny and gay.
Small and gay. And forgetful.
It's also like the Droog live in Lig or something.
What's that?
Ruddy Man.
Yeah.
So, okay. Ooh, can I explain the Ruddy Man? Because it's one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah. But let's see if we can do it justice.
All right. So what you first need to understand is that some would say, "Oh, the Ruddy Man is Molag Bal." No. That is incorrect. You see, Molag Bal once lived in Lig, where he did command Dreg. And thus, because his people were Dreg, he had more Dreg-like aspects. When Lig was eventually out of existence, and we get Tamriel proper, you eventually had, fast forward a shit ton of time past the Dawn Era into the Merethic, you have the Velothi, who are traveling to Resdain, and you have a Velothi child, who comes across Molag Bal's discarded skin, thinks it looks scary, and wants to pull a joke on his tribe. Unfortunately, when he puts the skin on, he turns into a monster, because that's what happens when you put on God skin. So he starts screwing everything up, and Vivek eventually comes around and stabs him.
Okay, so
Probably didn't do it much justice, but it is fun to talk about.
Let's fix some things here. So the Ruddy Man, the big one, he was the ruling king of Lig. He was the one figure that he's basically the Talos of Lig.
Which is terrifying, to say the least.
Yeah. So since the Dreg are like the primary organism, the primary society that they dominate Lig. And remember, this is just all as I understand it, so I may be full of shit on some things. Somewhere between Lig and Tamriel, Molag Bal, or the Ruddy Man, lost parts of himself, and he was splintered. And so we end up with the Ruddy Man we see in Tamriel, which is really just a husk. That's a metaphor. He is a shell of his former self. And then we have Molag Bal, who is really just kind of bare, and he's whittled down to his primary components. So the Ruddy Man has now been torn asunder, and so we have Molag Bal, the prince of domination and rape, and the Ruddy Man, who basically takes control of whoever wears the carapace. And so because the Ruddy Man was the king of the Dreg, he had a very crustacean sort of Dreg appearance, and so that's why in the sermons, the Ruddy Man is talked about as a Dreg. And actually, in Morrowind, if you go and you do the temple quests, you have to go. You have to fight a Dreg in whatever cave that is near. Is it? What's that?
Koal Cave.
Yes, that's the one. That's like right underneath Nisa's.
Yeah.
That's really what that all is. So if you take Ruddy Man and Molag Bal, add them together, you get the main dude, Ruddy Man. There might be some other parts scattered around, but I don't really know a whole lot about the rest of that. But that's,
so if the Ruddy Man is like a guy on Lig, which is in Mundus somehow it exists as like another continent. How did he then split off and part of him become a Daedric prince?
Oh, you know.
Okay, so that's a concept that the Daedric beings and Et Ada in general are able to splinter and fragment. For instance, Fanuit Hen, let's bring that small little man up again.
Who's a demi-prince?
He is a demi-prince. He is the quote-unquote scion of Boethia. Now, of course, scion is just referring to child. But it is highly unlikely that Boethia, actually had a child with a mortal. What we brought up last time on the last Lorecast was the concept that Fanuit Hen is more like a small fragment of Boethia, that Boethia had at one point fractured partially. Yes, thank you. The concept that Fanuit Hen was not a literal blood child as we understand the concept of child, but rather a small splintered fragment of Boethia when Boethia had fractured at some point, and thus Fanuit Hen is created.
I don't know that answers the question, though.
Oh wait, crap! What was the question?
I can understand the whole multiple parts thing, like dragons being multiple parts of Aka and stuff like that. But
okay. So really, what this sounds like is a question about mythopoesis.
Wait, the question was how can something split apart, right?
Is that?
It was how does this thing that exists in Tamriel in the Mundus become a Daedric prince when the Daedra are things not relating to Mundus in the first place?
Okay, so there's two answers.
If I'm understanding that right.
Yeah, no, you're good.
There's some answers there.
The first one being how does Molag Bal get from Lig to Tamriel? I don't really have enough knowledge to answer that.
I have an answer that I could.
Because we don't really know what Lig is 100%. It could be a previous Kalpa. It could be the Dream of Nur. We don't really know. At some point, though, because I mean the Kalpas make more sense because that's more time for this division to take place, and then boom, we end up in Tamriel, and all this time has passed, and now Molag Bal is what he is instead of the Ready Man, the ruling king. But then on the other side, the second answer is mythopoesis, which comes from Roman, which is an idea that gods and deities, they draw their power from their worshippers. And so in the Elder Scrolls, what this translates into is the more people believe in something, the more that becomes a reality. Because the Arbus in and of itself is the dream of a sleeping godhead. And so if the godhead is dreaming, then that means all the people within that dream are minuscule fragments of that godhead, right? And so the more people agree on something, that's the more fragments of the godhead agree, which means that the godhead itself now agrees, and that is what it thinks, right? Do you follow me so far?
Yeah.
So
it's continue.
Well, so let's take let's go Lorcan. Let's take Lorcan for example. We've got Lorcan, the main entity that we see in Aldmer myth, or Bosmer, or in the Anuad, and we get the Manish version, Shor or Shazar. We got 3 versions of Lorcan now, and
all of those versions, despite dying, is still around. He still remains around even after death. He just becomes the god of the underworld.
Yeah, so because different groups of people have believed in Lorcan in different ways and different names, he now splinters into different entities. They are all part of the same whole, but they are not equivalent to each other. So if you're praying to Lorcan, you're praying to Lorcan. You're not praying to Shor. Shor is this whole other idea. But then if you pray to Shor, yeah, you're praying to Shor and not Lorcan, but they are the same. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
They are the same.
You're talking to a pagan, so yeah.
They are the same. And this can get to a very difficult problem where technically if you worship one, you're worshiping the other to a lesser degree.
Technically. I mean, if you get
into the whole concept of like there is a greater version of them that draws power from the worship of all. So the more one of them gets worshipped, it continues to power the greater one.
That's where we get into the concept of the oversoul, that there is one entity that kind of umbrellas all of these. So Lorcan,
the Lorkish oversoul,
Shazar, Shor, Sep, I think.
Andrew, we have to be careful about the Hammerfell stuff.
Yeah.
As I have brought up in the past.
We don't have Felix here. I'm pretty sure Sep is the version of.
Yeah, Sep is kind of the version.
Whereas Akel is the Akatosh version.
Yeah.
And then
but once again, the Hammerfell stuff is kind of weird.
That's like Kota.
Yeah, but once again, the Hammerfell stuff is kind of weird because if we were to accept that the Red Guards are indeed the people from the dream Anu is from, then technically their gods are fully separate.
Oh yeah,
from our gods, which in a lot of ways they are. Like one of the few gods that you could even say they really share would be Mara in the case of Morwa.
Yeah,
but even in the case of Morwa, she is very, very different. Because Mara in Tamriel, in every religion that has Mara, she is seen as a mother, a caregiver.
Yeah.
Well, but then in Hammerfell religions, in the Okun religion, Morwa is the fertility goddess, and she is very much ancient fertility goddess. Her statues are quite plump.
And I mean, I'm operating outside of lens of perception theory at this point, just for the sake of being
just for the sake of being able to actually explain something.
But we've got Namira and Namira with 2 eyes from the Khajiit.
Namira.
We've got Sheogorath. We've got Shegorath. We have Sheor, the bad man.
No, it's not Shegorath. It's Shegora. Or Shegora.
Yes.
Also, okay, so Sheor is the really weird one to get into because Sheor is could technically be seen as a combination of Sheogorath and Shor.
Yes.
Because you also have to remember that Bretons have very much an Altmeri style culture, so they do view Shor as a bad god. Hence why he is the god of crop failure.
So
what I'm gathering is that the idea is that the people that exist in the universe manifest the different aspects of the gods through their different interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because technically everyone is the godhead.
Yes.
Yeah. So by that virtue, okay, I had a thought.
It can be whatever the godhead thinks is the coolest at the moment.
Where was I going with that? I had a thought. Damn you, alcohol.
Maybe we should start bringing steak to the Lorechat instead of alcohol.
I had something to say. I don't remember what it was. Oh well, it'll come back to me. Yeah. So yeah, these are all different interpretations of different deities, and because they're interpreted differently, then they become different. So they're all part of the same whole, but they're not the same. And so I mean, we have so many different versions of different deity. I mean, even Daedra. I mentioned Sheogorath. Hermaeus Mora is also called Herma Mora. He's called the Woodland Man.
There's different spellings of his name too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The Slode in my own stuff.
Oh no, Sloda.
They call him the Driftwood Man.
Andrew, I have a distinct feeling that Slowgate is going to happen this year.
Slowgate.
That's going to be your fault.
Maybe. I mean, I've already included some stuff about Slowed lore that technically I wasn't supposed to know. I'm pretty sure it came from Kirkbride.
Crap.
That specifically being that Thros is a giant Slowed. I'm pretty sure like that was authorial intent, was that Thros is a giant Slowed. So like I've just kind of been rolling with that. Yeah, I mean, does that answer? Does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Sorry if it doesn't actually give much of an answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's also abstract and hard to put to words. That really, I mean, I try. I try so hard.
I just gotta.
I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. It's like I think I got a sort of understanding of the whole mythopia. I don't know how to say words.
There's mythopoeia.
That's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's the one I know of, but I can never say, so I never say it.
That's a big mood.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of that's at least how I explain mythopoeia. Is from a godhead perspective, and that all things are fractions of the godhead. Funnily enough, that's also how I explain Kim as well. That one fragment understands its connection to the godhead, and so by synecdoche, which is a poetic term, I'm sure Astra knows that phrase.
Hey, that word was in the primer.
What's that?
Isn't that used in the Orbit primer? I've been reading it just now.
Yes, it is. I included that on purpose. In part because so synecdoche, which is a poetic term for a part standing in for the whole. So he is slain by my hand. The hand didn't do the actual killing; the person did, but the hand stands in for them for that alliterative phrase, right? That was the best way I could think of to talk about how Kim works, because an individual understands they are in part the whole, and so they use that connection to assert their will over the dream. They realize they are the godhead, and that by virtue they are also everyone else. It's kind of a Zen, lucid dreaming, nirvana kind of thing. And so that's why Kim is such a big deal. But it's also the greatest act of narcissism that you can possibly have, because I'm part of the Dreamer, but I'm actually me, and the Dreamer can go fuck himself because I'm here and he can deal with it. Like,
make your new reality.
Yeah, and as someone explained to me once, Kim is basically holding a gun to God's head and saying, "If I don't exist, then neither do you."
Oh yes.
And that's where that comes from. And so that's how I explain Kim, and I've done that a lot in test lore. I try to do that whenever I can.
But is it wrong?
Speaking of the subject of Kim, though, I just had my friend message me on Discord, and this is the let me just read the chat out word for word. It says, "I'm too high to try to be thinking about this right now." That's the sentence. Way too high for this, but OCs are just Kim. And I responded, "The OCs are the prisoner." And then I've seen like typing, but I haven't gotten a message.
Okay, so the problem therein is that I feel that technically, even with Chim, you do not become a prisoner.
Yeah, I feel like this.
Chim is being a prisoner is far beyond just Chim.
No,
it's a whole Kim or Chim. I've never got it right.
If we ask ESO, it's Chim because Chim
like Chimera.
It doesn't really matter how.
It honestly doesn't matter.
I pronounce it with a hard K sound.
I pronounce it CHIM as Chim purely because in ESO we get songs like Chim a lot of all.
We never actually hear anyone say it, so.
Is it Chimer or Chimer?
I would say Chimer. Changed elves.
I would say Chimer because it like Chimera. Yeah. So.
Do they ever say Chimer versus Chimer in ESO?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time out for a second.
Yeah.
The voice acting in ESO is terrible.
Yeah, they pronounce it Naravarine.
Naravarine.
I wanted
that
to
pissed
slap
me off.
somebody.
That made me.
All right, Dan. You say that it's terrible. However, my response to that is Merkmeyer. Holy shit! Their ability to just say all those words correctly is mind-boggling.
I'm sure.
I haven't played it yet. I'm really excited to.
Yeah, Merkmeyer's so good.
Do it.
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't been there once since I finished all the quests. But
it was a wild ride.
I spent so much more time in Vardenfell. Like that's.
Oh yeah, Vardenfell.
Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be spending much time in Vardenfell on my sorcerer, just because I've never been super big into Vardenfell. I like the lore. I like the story it provides, both in terms of Vardenfell and Morrowind, the actual game.
I've loved every so far.
Unfortunately, it's kind of one of those cases of it may have been too overhyped for me before I ever got into it. Like people overhyped Morrowind for me before I ever actually played Morrowind, and then once I get in,
you didn't have that nostalgia.
Yeah, I don't have those nostalgic feelings for it. So as I get into it, it's like with these fresh eyes, I'm just like, oh, this is cool and all. This is great, but I don't feel like overwhelming joy about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think
mostly because I feel overwhelming joy about Tess as a whole.
Yes, that's very fair.
I'm really excited, and I only wanted to point this out to brag a little bit. I have the complete set. There's Naryu.
Oh God!
There's the Warden, which may or may not be Ice Fire Warden.
It is.
It is.
There's Vivek. And this just came in the mail yesterday.
Oh my God!
Oh God!
Oh my gosh!
Which on the back it actually gives you. There's Naryu, Ice Fire Warden, Vivek, and the Dwarmer Colossus.
I had a webcam. I would show you. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, dude, it's like he actually messaged me. He was like, "Dude, they made a Funko Pop and didn't even give me one."
I actually have a.
I was like, "Dude."
Yeah, they need to give him a free one.
I know. Well, he's mad at Zos right now because he
used his likeness.
well, no, like he was doing a writing project for them, and they just
that one, yes.
And like he's like, should I email them or something? I'm like, dude, yeah, email them. Be like, hey, what's the fucking deal? Because I'm sitting here for 6 months, like waiting to hear back from you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I was like, dude, just be assertive, like.
Yeah, you really do, because they forget.
And he was like, well, I'll wait. And I was like, all right.
Don't worry.
Whatever, man.
It's corporate. Get on them immediately and stay on them until they do what you want.
Well, I guess it was the HR gal who's in all the streams that they do. I don't remember what her name is. And then she was the main point person, and then Lorechat was the other one. And
I think I know who you mean. Yeah.
I know he's super busy. I don't like messaging him if I can avoid it, but there have been a few questions that I've had that I asked him about subjectivity and lore once. He couldn't give me a straight answer.
Oh God, yeah, that's right.
Oh boy.
He did point out that in the past he's talked about the unreliable narrator, so I took that as a sly yes.
I feel like it's a yes.
Yeah, that's the best yes you can have.
Not allowed to say so.
That's the closest you can get to a yes, just
he
because
says nobody's nodding.
He says nobody's.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally get it. There are certain things that just within contract, even if it seems like it wouldn't break anything, it absolutely would break something.
Yeah.
And you kind of need to not let that happen.
Also, like the legal system of copyright defense and proof that you're owning the thing that you have copyright on is so weirdly labyrinthine that they probably literally can't straight out say that the law is up to interpretation, because then that might potentially in some way open them up to criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah, open it up to criticism, and it could also open it up to a point where, like, if you say the lore is subjective, you could have someone who makes a 100% not Elder Scrolls game that's just completely an Elder Scrolls game, but because they say lore is subjective, they can't actually prove that any of it technically belongs to them.
Yep, and that's why they can't do that.
And I don't blame them.
No, like, I don't either. It doesn't mean that law isn't subjective. It just means that the argument against people who think that it isn't becomes more difficult.
Yeah.
But we know that.
So I have a question, and it's just a different direction slightly. How does everyone feel about timeline delinear? Oh fuck! Dragon breaks. How does everyone feel about dragon breaks?
How does everyone feel about what?
Dragon breaks. The concept that the different choices you make in the games actually create different universes and delinearize the timeline.
That's not how I've always described a dragon break. So, to try and explain it, avoiding the dragon break of 2920. Where we got the name initially, let us look at one of the most famous dragon breaks ever, the Warp in the West. Yes. Technically, yes, all your actions caused you to create multiple different timelines, because there's, like, I think a solid 9 different endings to Daggerfall.
Yep. There are 6.
Yes, there are 6. And then technically there is, I guess technically you could say there is a 7th ending in the ending of You Did Nothing. So everything got screwed up anyway.
Yeah.
The thing is, when the Jills came about and fixed the dragon break, they put all universes together and said yes to all. So it's a very bizarre concept wherein technically, yes, you create multiple timelines through your actions, but your actions also all combine together into a single timeline wherein they all happened.
I tried to draw this out once on the timeline to see how it looked, and I wasn't sure if it was multiple timelines that converge into one for a brief period and then re-separate, or if it was one timeline that branches into multiple and then becomes one again. I think
it would best be say, like, it's one single timeline that then bloats out. It's like you have a pipe,
That's how
and
I
at a
see
certain
it.
point, the pipe is at its weakest. That's where you have the multiple timelines, and the gas causes the pipe to expand there, but it eventually gets back to a point of strength where it comes back together. But you have now had that change.
Someone,
Okay, I've got an answer for you.
Okay.
I've got an answer for you.
Flavors.
Have you ever seen the human nervous system?
Yes.
I was about to say.
Okay, because it's kind of tree-like in that it branches and it goes out in all these directions, but it's all one being, and that's it.
Yeah, I can see that working.
I see it as rivers.
That's the metaphor I use. I use rivers.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing there to also note is that those both work very well. The problem is that things do eventually converge back together.
Well, so do rivers and streams and creeks.
I suppose so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Though I would also say that whenever I think of rivers, I tend to think of more rivers that eventually have an endpoint where they don't actually converge with anything again.
That would be the sea. And I'm not sure what, and I don't know what that is.
Someone asked on Tesla what a person would experience while they're in the middle of a dragon break. And my response was, ever seen Memento, the movie with Guy Pearce? Like, I imagine it would be something like that, or Out of Order, and no one knows what goddamn day it is.
It would be like Mandela syndrome. Mandela.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Mandela effect. The thing that's named for something really stupid.
Yes.
Well, and then Darren had a question that he typed out. Where do Jills go when time is fine? I like to think, having also been a Doctor Who nerd, I'm still a Doctor Who nerd. The Jills are perpetually 1 second in the future.
Nice.
And so they're never here now. And so they are actually scouting for future.
They're scouting 1 second ahead for the dragon break.
Yep, they're so that they can get a jump on it. I mean, maybe they're an hour ahead, maybe they're a year ahead. I don't know, but they're not here.
But
now,
it does take time to fix a dragon break.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, all right. So here's the thing. I don't think that when you're in the middle of a dragon break, you'd be consciously aware that you're in the middle of a dragon break. I think it's more like when a dragon break occurs and the timeline splits, you now have multiple consciences of yourself. Each one of them experiencing the dragon break differently, but then they all converge back together, and you just kind of have this muddied memory that you either A, might not remember, or B, you have all these different memories of what happened, and you're not totally sure, but because everything seems to be fine now, your brain kind of just puts it away. And I say that just because, like, I have heard about the Mandela effect before. I do think it's hilarious. But the Mandela effect seems to usually talk about, like, duality. It tends to talk about the concept of, like, I thought it was X, but instead it's actually Y, and apparently it's always been Y, but I was certain that it was once X.
So I would actually push back on that by referring to where were you when the dragon broke, where the Khajiit talk about that they document the dragon break.
Of course they did.
Oh, shit, yeah, I've been meaning to read that for the longest time.
It's such a great book.
I'm sure it's fantastic.
There's some really good stuff in there.
I would also like to once again point out that, like, I have heard the comment in the past of, like, a Shezarine is someone who's actively who could actually understand a dragon break, which I feel is kind of strange because it almost makes it kind of sound like people who aren't a Shezarine cannot comprehend the idea of a dragon break and thus wouldn't think about it. But then you have things wherein like you have the Altmer who actively talk about the fact that humans are responsible for the dragon break and how they really fucked up time that one time.
Yeah, because I keep hearing like even though it's been like MK's basically said no, there's no dragon break at the end of Skyrim, that people think that the ending of the Civil War caused a dragon break because the same time as the dragons returned.
I've actually had a theory of how the Civil War could end with both sides losing.
I'm interested to hear that.
Okay.
Or
probably not both sides losing, but effectively both endings happening. The idea basically being you first have the push of Ulfric, gets to Solitude, kills Tullius. Now the Empire is rightfully pissed. They send in the full Imperial military. They push Ulfric back and kill Ulfric. Done and done. Skyrim is still part of the Empire, but effectively both endings have happened. Wherein Ulfric, for a time, was the High King of Skyrim and then was promptly killed.
That's interesting.
Okay. I guess another thing to think of is, like, I believe that in some cases, the whole idea of, because, we can do all these different things, we create multiple timelines because we're doing all these different quest lines. I think it could be more considered that, like, from the universe's standpoint, you, the prisoner, only technically did the main quest line. Yeah. The other side quest lines happened from someone else.
That's very true.
Some other entity caused those other quest lines to happen. Even if you vividly remember that you're the one who did them, because of your role in the universe, you did not actually do them. It was a different entity.
Well, I mean, that's only true insofar as history is concerned. If we're talking about Tamriel Prime, the one Tamriel that everyone has in common,
the one Tamriel update,
then that's someone else joined the Dark Brotherhood and did all that.
Someone else joined the Dark Brotherhood and someone told the guards about the Dark Brotherhood.
But,
for example, yeah. You go. Sorry.
As far as you were concerned and your playthrough is concerned, they're not going to intrude upon that because your playthrough is your own interpretation. And so whatever happened in your game, that is your truth, and you get to do with it whatever you want.
That's your stream.
I always think of the way they choose the Prime Tamriel, I guess, is compare it to other developers who do very similar things, like BioWare, where they pick the one canon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the existing canon throughout the entire series, no matter what choices you make.
Mm-hmm. Which Bethesda avoids doing that. They don't want to.
Bethesda really doesn't like doing that, and I actually kind of applaud them for doing that.
Yeah, because
like even if it can sometimes feel sort of kind of, even if it can sometimes make you feel a little down, make you feel a little bit less happy when you get into the next game in the series and, like, basically none of the previous game is mentioned, none of your actions in the previous game seem to have mattered. At the same time, I'm glad that they make it so that a lot of the actions that you did, unless they were very major, didn't really matter in terms of worldly effect.
They're not prequel sequel relationships. They're just telling different parts of the story.
They're just different parts of a story at a different time.
So, I mean, my whole thing, my motto has become lore is what you make of it, because everyone's interpretation of the lore is equally valid, and that even if it deviates from what Bethesda has said, you don't have to be restricted by Bethesda's headcanon. I call it headcanon on purpose because they're just people like you and me, and so if I think Nerevarine did this or that and the other thing, Bethesda can't tell me they didn't. If your Nerevarine did something different, then same thing. We don't have to accept anything other than our own opinions in this context, and that's a major basis of the ideas of subjectivity and lore that I try to I don't want to say push, that sounds too aggressive, but
encourage.
I try to, and people will talk about IPs and trademarks and copyrights, and I'm like, you know what? No, that all that does is give Bethesda the right to make money on it. You cannot own an idea You cannot own love or anger or the idea of a caramel macchiato. Like it just isn't a thing that you can own. If you know the recipe for caramel macchiato, Starbucks
make a caramel macchiato.
Yeah.
If you know the recipe for Little Joel tonic tea, which I'm gonna make without elderflower cordial, because Jesus, that's too expensive. I'm gonna make it.
Now you don't get to call it a caramel macchiato because maybe Starbucks has that trademark. They get to make money on it, but they can't tell you that you can't make one yourself, right? Same thing for lore. You can make whatever lore you want with whatever ingredients you like. Yes, death of the author. That is 100% it. And so, authorial intent doesn't really matter, but you can choose to listen to it if you like. No one's going to tell you that, oh, you accept what's in the games. Okay, more power to you, but don't tell us that we can exist beyond that. Don't tell us that we can't do it. Because
don't try and tell us that we can't exist beyond the games, and then when you try saying that, don't try and say that ESO doesn't count.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the problem I have.
I was trying to explain to my friend Carol, because her response was, ESO is a prequel set hundreds of years in the past. Why should I care about it? And the way I tried to explain it to her was, yes, it's effectively a prequel game. It is effectively a completely separate story in the past that doesn't have much of an effect on the future. But what I added onto that was that ESO also gives you a massive insight into a whole lot of cultures that we never got an insight into before. It gives us better insight into cultures we have seen and expands upon that. It gives us Nords who act like Nords and not chilly Imperials.
And a lot of the people that do the writing for it now, actually really care about.
That's the other really big thing.
And that's all I want.
The writing is really good because the writing team is full of massive nerds.
Yes.
Yeah. What I would love? I would love for Zoss to be like, hey, we see what you're doing. We'd like you to come write for us. I'd be like, dude, yeah.
Yes,
I would love that. But
I would love to be able to write for Zoss. But I can almost guarantee I would effectively just write tiny little lore books.
Lore books, stuff like that.
But I'm okay with writing tiny lore books.
Personally, I really like the concept that, going slightly back to where we're talking about how the major actions get kept into the canon and the rest kind of gets lost to history. It kind of makes you think of how, when you're going through the story as the prisoner, you are like the biggest thing in the story. You are the main focus of the story, and
you're
then
the fulcrum.
Yeah, the fulcrum. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go looking back at it, and it's like a drop in the pond. It's like a tiny drop in the pond where the actions that are resulted from your actions are more important than the person itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, something my friend Jonathan says. He says there are levels of truth. No one's going to argue that the Dunmer don't exist. Like when we say that there is no canon, we're not saying that Tamriel isn't a place, that Hammerfell and Somerset Isle, that they don't exist, that the Tribunal are not the living god kings of Morrowind. We are not disputing that. What we are saying is that the things that are interpretive and that you can put your own spin on, you have the freedom to do that. And no one can tell you otherwise. Does anyone else have to accept your spin on it? No, absolutely not. But by the same token, you don't have to accept theirs either. It's free association and open source, and just make of it what you want. Lore is what you make of it.
Yes. That being said, when said assertion becomes, oh, the Elder Scrolls isn't a magical setting, it's a very much low fantasy, low magic setting that's full of conspiracy theories, and it's just Game of Thrones with even less magic. That's when I get upset.
Especially when it's coming from, say, the game devs. It makes me very nervous.
Yeah.
No, not from the game devs. From some rando I had the mispleasure of trying to explain some lore concepts to.
Yeah, that guy, he's choosing not to.
My manager at work got me a little miffed because he was talking about how I was playing ESO. And he goes, "Well, WoW was more popular," and I mean, Yeah, I don't care either.
I don't like
Yeah, I played WoW for 8 years. I played it the day it came out. I played the beta, and he did too. So we're both like, we're veterans of it. But I'm over it. I went back to the Elder Scrolls and got sucked into that, and I enjoy ESO. And he's like, he wants me to play WoW with him. He's like, please, please, please. I'm like, shut up. And so he said, like, why you're just gonna play ESO until a real Elder Scrolls game comes out by Bethesda?
Yeah,
and I turned and I looked at him, and I grabbed one of the because I work in like a high skill cafe. I grabbed one of the knives and just pointed it at him.
Oh my god, yeah!
Jesus, Belle.
Oh,
it's in your boss.
You have no idea. Me and my manager we're pretty close, and all we do is just look at memes all day and shit on each other.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a subscriber to ESO since beta. When ESO had a paid subscription that was mandatory, I had that. And I
played beta. I was disappointed, but then you know what? They came back.
Yeah,
got
they came back good.
Yeah.
It got turned into a newt.
Yeah.
It got turned into a very different game. They stopped doing the dumb thing of you go to the zones for your alliance.
Yeah,
that was always a bad idea.
They made some good choices, I think, and ESO has really come into its own since then.
Yes, I agree.
And it's one of the better MMOs. I mean, is it a WoW killer?
No,
I was never into WoW. I hate Blizzard.
WoW was never.
I don't care about WoW,
never going to be as
but I
good
also
as it ever was too.
I don't care about WoW, and I don't really care about the concept of it's a WoW killer because why should I care? Why should it be a WoW killer? Why should it only be good if it beats out World of Warcraft?
Play it if you enjoy it.
The idea of a WoW killer came about because it created a monopoly. So people wanted to have a more equal marketplace for that kind of genre.
Oh, interesting.
But now it's not even no one cares. No one cares.
At this point, the MMO marketplace has gone from it's only just WoW to no one outside the marketplace even actually cares.
Not really that they're not as I'm gonna say that back when WoW first came out, it was kind of I know this is controversial, but I'm talking about from a standpoint of how popular it is. It was kind of the Fortnite of now, you know?
Oh yeah.
But now it's
I lost a lot of friends to that. That's why I hate it so much. I don't blame you. I'd go over to friends' houses and they'd just play World of Warcraft.
Zombies.
I'll just sit here with my thumb up my ass. Don't I'm your guest.
I tried WoW, but it didn't drag me in kicking and screaming like the Elder Scrolls did. And ESO,
you have no choice.
I did not expect to like ESO. I went into it thinking, I've heard good and bad things about it. I'll go in with an open mind, and it was okay.
I went in because it was an Elder Scrolls title. And
I went into ESO a few months before Vardenfell, before the Morrowind chapter came out.
Mm.
So I was kind of on the same mindset. I was going I like Elder Scrolls. I mean, I'm kind of fine with MMOs. At least I'd be able to play with my friends and talk with them while we're playing and all that good stuff. And I get in, and I'm just oh, this was not what I was expecting. What's going on here?
I honestly, so I played beta and I didn't like it. Kitty.
Yes,
I played beta. I didn't like it, but then I went back to playing Guild Wars 2, and then I went to QuakeCon 2016, which I'm actually wearing the shirt of that right now. And Pete Hines gave everyone ESO for free, so I was all right, I guess I'll play it. I ended up really liking it.
Anyone remember the song "Waiting for Oblivion"?
No.
Waiting for Oblivion. It's been a long, long time. No,
that would be before.
Not a long time. Try to wait for Elder Scrolls 6.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm gonna be 34.
That was like 2000.
Wasn't the separation wasn't the separation between Morrowind and Oblivion like 4 years or so?
Yeah.
Me and Dan are gonna be dead.
There's a line in there.
Yeah. You guys are gonna be dead. I'm gonna be in a home.
So I'm gonna change topic because the question was asked, "What is Dawnfang?" Let's see.
Magic sword.
Where the hell did it come from? Is it not one of the most memorable Akaviri artifacts? So I pulled up the UESP page about Dawnfang / Duskfang because they're the same thing. And yes, it is an Akaviri blood drinker longsword. I think this is the only time we ever hear about that at all.
That makes it sound like it might specifically be a Seishi weapon.
Oh yeah, it is. And it was let's see, what does it say? The blade was originally forged in Akavir by the Seishi. It somehow made its way to Tamriel, somehow being the operative word, where it ended up inside a metal box in the depths of the undead-infested alien ruins of Trumbe. I don't know if that's how you say it. Trumbe, whatever.
The wilds of the Colovian Highlands.
The box was looted from the ruins by a small band of adventurers. The blade was claimed by an orc warrior, Gromuk Grobark, who was responsible for giving the artifact his name. He ends up in the Shivering Isles. He's one of the people that you make go mad in that whole thing. You know, here's a treasure box, and we're gonna throw keys at you or whatever. And he dies, and then you get to claim the sword, and that's where you get Dawnfang or Duskfang.
Yeah, that's right, Sky Oblivion.
Yeah.
God, I have seen a lot of the concept art for that. I think one thing in particular that I really loved was their concept art for how they want to make their Daedric armor, making it look almost kind of natural, in the sense that like it's carved out of like stone and whatnot, rather than being like masterfully crafted.
I like
that. That's the reimagining of those two swords.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's a lot less. It's a lot less Oblivion, which is probably the best. It's for the better.
Dan, I appreciate your Facebook comment. Tesla, make your own damn caramel macchiato. That's. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
But as far as Dawnfang and Duskfang goes, I mean, I think this is really the only instance of a blade like this that we see coming from Akavir. When we think of Akaviri weapons, usually it's like katanas and very Japanese influenced weaponry. So I mean, I'm not sure why it's not a more obvious Akaviri artifact. I mean, it could just be.
I have a theory.
Well, I mean,
it's a blood drinker sword, right?
Yeah.
That could explain why it's a double-edged sword rather than a single-edged sword, having basically two blades and having the hole down the center. Because let's be honest, if you tried doing that with a single-edged sword, it would kind of start getting asymmetrical and start not looking that great.
Yeah, and Shivaditya mentioned how it may not actually be Akaviri. And I wondered, well, maybe it's Merimer in origin. Because I mean, we're only told by UESP that it's Akaviri. We don't really have...
It could be Malmer in origin. The thing is, I feel like the abilities of the weapon itself feel somewhat not something the Malmer would typically do.
Yeah, see, I don't think it's Merimer because I mean, even though it's got the snake motifs on it and everything, which if you look at ESO and the Merimer motif, there's snakes and sea serpents all over everything.
Yeah, it's great.
And
do you have a problem?
Yeah, so I mean, there's no reason that a Merimer would be so far inland in Cyrodiil because it's an alien ruin. It's in Cyrodiil, maybe northern Valenwood. I mean, there's not a whole lot of. I guess there are alien ruins all over Valenwood. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But it's specifically the wilds of the Colovian Highlands. But again, we can't actually be sure that that's where it's from.
Well, I mean, we gotta know.
Hold on. Grimmock's journal.
We gotta figure out where Trumbe which is, let's see, view on map. Let me look here. Because why would a Marimer? Let's see, Trumba is right there. Oh yeah, I guess that's somewhat close to the coast near Anvil. It's just to the northwest of Kvatch.
What if? Dawn and dusk.
Are you trying to say that it's an artifact of Azura?
Maybe.
Could do.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I mean, we don't without knowing a whole lot of its origins. I mean, it's hard to draw comparisons like that.
Yeah, and the snake motif makes it kind of bizarre to suddenly be Azura's.
It seems to me that Akaviri is a Saisi specifically is a pretty solid yes.
Yep.
Because I mean, yeah, we get snakes and I mean, Marimer don't normally venture as far north as Anvil. We know that
as a general rule, the Malmer, while they do plenty of, well, I don't know, they do kind of sometimes sail as far as Anvil, or at least get close to it.
Hear me out.
Because Tempest Island.
Yeah, hold on, Dan's got something to say.
Oh, ow! Stop kicking me, baby. So the idea I had was that, pretty much the same topic I was on. What if it was of Malmo manufacture, but it was taken during some skirmish and it's just sort of been passed around throughout Cyrodiil?
Could be. So okay. So we're pretty much on even footing. It could be Marimer just as well as it could be Akaviri.
Wow.
Like it could be, some treasure they managed to bring back from.
Oh fuck! Why?
Yeah, I mean it could. Okay. It could even be the spoils of a Riemann era incursion into Akavir. We don't really know. I mean, I think both are pretty plausible. I mean, I'm leaning more towards Akaviri just because the UESP seems to lean that way. And I mean, I admit it could go either way. But I mean, I guess we don't really have a whole lot of examples of other weapons of the Mayormer to compare with. I mean, I could look at the Mayormer motif.
Why are you saying Mayormer?
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, but we hear it pronounced in ESO. It's Malware.
Yeah.
I thought we established that the ESO pronunciation is.
It's frequently shit. Yes.
I think but also I have an alternate statement: Mao Zedong.
Fair.
That's also Chinese and incredibly difficult in its own right.
I am a prescriptivist in terms of linguistics. So.
Well, I'll say I'm looking at Malmer, whatever swords, and they are more double-edged, like a Roman gladius, kind of how they have the two sharp edges,
sort of more for chopping.
And that's what
they are more for chopping. Unfortunately, the Pandonian style also has a problem of really not looking like one of Duskfang, because both the single-handed and two-handed are very much, while they are two-sided, they are curved. They are meant for slicing.
They have their
swords seem more curved than the red guards.
I wouldn't hold it against it. The only thing is the Saisi are very, very obviously Japanese influenced, right? And so
I was gonna say that the Seishi seem more Chinese influenced.
See, I think Chinese is more like Dunmer. The Dunmer are way more.
I was saying like Seishi versus
hold on,
Men of Akavir.
Darren, what's up? Darren?
I think that Seichi are more like aesthetically Japanese, but maybe more culturally Chinese.
Sure, yeah, and that's really the aesthetics I'm talking about. And I mean, if we look at Dawnfang and Duskfang, it's got two edges to it, right? Regardless of what the shapes are, it fundamentally ends up with a gladius sort of shape. It doesn't look like a katana, mostly because that was not a way to create weapons in Asia at that time period, right? Katanas are a traditionally Japanese weapon. Sure, they could have made gladii if they wanted to, but they just didn't. They found that the katana was so much more effective in combat because it's got the more the softer back end with the rigid edge that allows for more pliability.
Yeah. That being said, if we were to assume there could be a group on Akavir, perhaps not the Seishi, perhaps the Kapaltun or the Tangbo or the Kamal, who have much more Chinese influence, then it could belong to one of them, because Chinese swords, for a very long time, like the typical Chinese sword you would find in the military, wouldn't really be curved. It would be a straight-edged sword.
Yeah.
A straight-edged, double-sided sword. So it could be that. It also could be that that's not even a snake motif. That could be a stylized dragon motif.
Could be. I mean,
and thus it could be a Kapaltun sword.
Yeah. So what do we think about what do we think about Dawnfang and Duskfang? I mean, I think
I think they're neat.
So it's so unique in its own right. It's really hard to pin down where it's from, what it's. I mean, we know what its purpose was. It was a fucking sword.
When you shove it into people, they die.
Yeah, it's a really good purpose.
It's the thing that kills you.
It's so unique in its own right. Like, we really have nothing to compare it with reliably. I mean, is that a pretty reasonable assessment, you think?
Yeah.
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 That's it.
I mean, that's kind of.
It's kind of best we can really get.
Yeah. So I don't know if that helps answer the questions about Dawnfang and Duskfang at all.
You know who we haven't talked about yet?
Hmm.
Who do I talk about every single time I'm in here?
Obviously Malakath.
Oh yeah, so Malakath.
Oh, Dad. Oh, Dad.
Oh, Daddy. Oh, Daddy.
Okay, Belle, go ahead.
Oh, I don't really have anything to add. I was just saying.
You really have nothing to say about him.
You just want to bring up Sothasil by proxy.
Yeah.
Bring up Sothasil's proxy.
It's not
Elder Scroll
lore cast about me saying the word Sothasil, and so now.
Theory. Elder Scrolls 6 will have the orcs and the Altmer teaming up because Malakath starts to become Trinimac again.
Yeah.
But he'll never fully become Trinimac. He'll just become Orc Trinimac.
And with that, I think I'm going to stop the broadcast.
All right.
Sounds about right.
Good night.